You thought Christmas movies were supposed to be cozy, right? Snow falling gently outside, hot cocoa steaming in your hands, bells ringing in the distance. Well, forget that. Because if It's a Wonderful Life had been set in 1875, the story wouldn't be about angels earning their wings. It would be about you, sitting in a freezing wooden shack, gnawing on the last stale potato in the barrel while praying the neighbor's cow doesn't die before you can steal milk from it. Merry Christmas. Oh, and before we dive into your glamorous life of frostbite and famine, do yourself a favor. Subscribe to this channel so at least something in your life feels saved. And hey, check the pinned comment for a Christmas calendar that won't leave you starving in a snowbank. Unlike you in this story, it starts with you waking up, your bed not a bed, just hay stuffed into a sack, scratching your skin raw. You pull the thin wool blanket over your shoulders, but it doesn't matter. Your breath is already puffing white clouds into the air. Inside, you know you should get up because the fire went out hours ago, but honestly you can't feel your toes. That might be a problem. You sit up and the first sound you hear is the wind rattling the shutters, like someone shaking a tin can full of bones. Your little brother is curled up beside you, shivering so hard the straw is vibrating. He mumbles something about being hungry, but you don't answer, because you're hungry too. Yesterday you split a heel of bread 4 ways and there's nothing left in the cupboard except flour with weevils crawling in it. You might use it anyway. You'll just close your eyes and pretend the crunch is sugar. This is 1875. There's no Angel Clarence waiting to show you how important your life is. If anything, the only heavenly being that visits is pneumonia, and it already took half the town last winter. So yeah, enjoy your Christmas morning. You stumble to the door, dragging the blanket with you, and when you crack it open, the cold hits like a slap. The snow outside isn't the fluffy postcard kind. It's hard-packed grey, with horse droppings frozen into it. Your neighbors trudging down the street look like ghosts, thin, hollow-eyed, bundled in rags. One of them nods at you but doesn't smile. Nobody smiles here. Smiles cost energy and energy costs food. And yet deep in your gut there's a flicker of stubbornness. You've heard stories of rich people somewhere, eating oranges imported from Florida, stringing up actual candles on trees. You can't even light a candle without worrying you'll burn the whole house down. But still you tell yourself, maybe today will be different. Maybe today you won't starve. But reality doesn't wait. You trudge toward the barn where the family cow is mooing weakly. She's thin too, ribs jutting like rafters. You stroke her neck and whisper, "Hold on." You're really whispering to yourself. If she dies, you die. The milk she gives is watery and warm against your frozen fingers. You carry it back inside carefully, but your brother's eyes are already following the pail like a hawk. He licks his cracked lips. You give him the first sip, because you can't stand the thought of watching him collapse before you do. And then you hear it. Bells. Not cheerful sleigh bells, but the sharp clang of the church bell downtown. 1 clang for death, 2 for funeral. It's Christmas morning and already someone didn't make it. You swallow hard, but your throat is dry. Who was it? Old man Harris, who hasn't walked since the spring. The Miller baby, who was born too early. You don't know, and maybe you don't want to. The sound echoes through the frozen air, mixing with the coughs of neighbors and the squeak of wagon wheels on ice. This is your wonderful life. You want to cry, but even tears would freeze on your face. Still, you can't just sit there. You wrap your brother in the blanket and tell him to stay inside while you walk toward town. The snow crunches like glass under your boots. At the corner, you pass Mrs. Taylor's house. She's outside splitting wood with hands swollen red, her face covered in soot. She glances at you and you both know you're thinking the same thing. There isn't enough wood to last the week. Downtown is nothing like the twinkling Bedford Falls of the movie. Here it's mud frozen into ridges, wagons tilted in the ruts, dogs digging for scraps. A man is selling apples, wrinkled, brown, and still somehow too expensive. You finger the coins in your pocket, 2 cents that have to last until spring. You walk away. Then the church doors swing open, and a wave of sound hits you singing. Thin voices straining through, "Oh come, all ye faithful." For a second you stop. The melody floats in the icy air like smoke, fragile but defiant. People inside are huddled together, wrapped in shawls, swaying as if warmth can be borrowed from each other. You could go in, but you don't. You're not sure you believe in anything anymore. You turn away, and that's when you see him, Mr. Potter. Not the greedy banker from the movie, but the local storekeeper. Same vibe though. He's standing outside his shop, counting coins with gloved hands, while children press their noses to the glass, staring at oranges stacked like jewels. He catches your eye and sneers. 2 cents won't get you far, boy. You clench your fists, but you don't answer, because he's right. So you walk back home, shoulders hunched, pockets empty. When you open the door, your brother's eyes brighten for a second, hoping you brought food. But you haven't. You sit beside him, listening to the wind clawing at the roof. And here's the worst part. You know that tonight, when the darkness falls and the candles gutter out, you'll still be alive. Alive and hungry. Alive and waiting. That's the cruel gift of 1875. Survival without hope. And yet, you wonder, what if you weren't here? Would anyone notice? Would anyone's life be worse? Or maybe everyone would be better off with one less mouth to feed. The thought curls in your mind like smoke, bitter and sharp. You don't say it out loud, but it lingers, gnawing at you just like the hunger. You lean back, close your eyes, and try to imagine something else. Anything else. Maybe a Christmas where bells mean joy, not death. Where milk comes cold from a bottle, not warm from a dying cow. Where people actually smile. You try to hold on to the dream even as your stomach twists. Because dreams are free. For now, the dream doesn't last. Because when you open your eyes again, you're staring straight at the roof beams, and one of them is dripping. Not water, melted ice, which means the roof is giving up. You shove a pot under the drip, but you know it won't matter. When spring comes, the whole place will sag like a corpse. If you make it to spring. That's the funny thing about 1875. It's not about living, it's about postponing dying. Your brother coughs again, a hacking sound that rattles through his chest like nails in a tin can. You look at him and think, if this were the movie, Clarence would swoop in right about now. Show me visions of what the world would be like without me. Convince me I matter. But in your version, Clarence froze to death before he even got his wings. You're on your own, so you decide to move. Sitting around waiting for miracles is just another way of starving slower. You lace up your boots, still caked in last week's mud, and step out into the street again. The air tastes like iron, sharp and metallic in your throat. Halfway down the road, you pass the blacksmith's forge. Except there's no fire roaring, no hammer on anvil, just silence. He can't afford the coal. A forge without fire is like a church without faith, hollow, abandoned, waiting to collapse. You keep walking, boots crunching on the frozen earth, heart thudding with every step. That's when you spot it. A wagon tipped on its side in a ditch. The horse is gone, probably eaten already, but inside the wagon is something rare. Sacks, grain sacks. You dart forward, eyes wide. Could this be it? Your miracle? Nope. The sacks are empty, torn open, chewed by rats, the grain long gone. Just scraps of burlap fluttering in the wind. You laugh, a dry, broken sound. Because of course. And then you hear it again, the bell. One clang, then another. Another death. You freeze. It's not shocking anymore, but it still digs into your ribs. You wonder if you'll be next. You wander toward the river, because at least water is free. The banks are crusted with ice, sharp edges glinting like knives. You smash a hole with a rock and scoop water into your hands. It's bitter cold, numbing your tongue, making your teeth ache, but it fills you in a way food doesn't. For a second, you almost feel human again. Almost. Then you hear voices. 2 men arguing downstream. You crouch low, edging closer, and catch fragments. Something about ration lines. Something about the sheriff keeping the good stuff for himself. You know better than to get involved, but the words stick in your mind. If the sheriff really is hoarding food, then maybe there's a stash somewhere. Hidden. Guarded. Enough to get through the winter. The thought gnaws at you all the way home. You picture loaves of bread stacked in a cellar, salted meat hanging from hooks, barrels of apples, and then you picture your brother, coughing himself to pieces while that food rots behind a locked door. By the time you push open your cabin door, the anger is simmering hot under your ribs. You sit down staring at the empty hearth and the idea bursts out before you can stop it. We could steal it. Your brother blinks, confused. His lips are cracked, blood at the corners. Steal what? Food. He laughs weakly. From who? You hesitate. You don't say the sheriff, because even speaking it feels dangerous, like summoning something you can't put back. But your silence says enough. His smile fades. "You'll hang," he whispers. "Maybe. Or maybe we live." The room goes quiet except for the wind rattling the walls. You know he's right. You know it's madness. But madness and hunger look the same after a while. That night you lie awake on the straw staring into the dark. Your stomach growls so loud you're afraid the neighbors can hear it through the walls. You press your hands to it, trying to hush it, trying to hush yourself, but your brain won't stop. Every sound outside, every crunch of snow, every squeak of wood sounds like opportunity or doom. Somewhere out there in the black winter night is food, enough to keep you alive, enough to keep your brother breathing. The only question is, do you take it? You close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come. Only visions, loaves of bread rising in an oven you'll never own, meat sizzling in a pan you'll never taste, a Christmas table glowing with candles you'll never light. And then, darkness, silence, hunger. When dawn cracks the horizon, the decision is already made. You wait until the town is asleep like everything else, low and brittle, pretending to be harmless. The moon is a pale coin, the sky sharp as tin. You pull your coat tighter, though it does nothing. It's mostly bravado at this point. Your breath fogs in front of your face and hangs there, a little cloud that wants to be a prayer. You clutch the little knife at your belt because it's something solid in a world that keeps dissolving. Your brother sleeps fitfully, making small noises that cut through you. You press your hand to his back, and it feels like paper. You want to promise him something big, Christmas miracles, cozy futures, warm pies, but you know promises are heavier than shoes, and you can't afford the weight. So you don't promise. You steal a look at his face and leave before he wakes. Outside, the town is a collection of silhouettes. The sheriff's house with the one dim window where the family always leaves a lamp burning, the general store with its barred shutters, the church spire pointing like an accusation. You crouch low, sticking to shadows, because your boots squeak on the frost like betraying rats. Each step is a small gamble. Every creak could be a dog, a nose pressed to the snow, or the sheriff's lantern swinging slow as doom. You slip toward the sheriff's house, because the rumor didn't come from nowhere. Greed and fear find company in small towns. Someone always talks when their conscience is hungry. The back of the sheriff's house faces the alley, and there's a cellar hatch you passed 100 times thinking nothing of it. Tonight it looks like an open mouth. You climb and the hinges groan, a noise that sounds like a prop in a ghost story, like the earth itself warning you. You half expect a hand to clamp onto your collar, but there's only cold air and the smell of salt pork. You lower yourself down, fingers numb, knees trembling. The cellar is darker than dark. Your eyes need time to find anything. You strike a match and it flares, a little sun that shows you barrels, crates, sacks, enough to make your knees go rubbery. For a moment you just stand there, gulping, like a man who stumbles into heaven and can't remember his sins. Barrel after barrel, apples, salted meat, flour still in sacks, a small box of tea. You think of your brother's face, of his cough, of the way he licked the pail of milk as if it were the only thing he'd ever tasted. You think of the bell tolls. Your hands shake so hard you almost drop the match. Greed is a funny thing. You always thought stealing would feel wrong in a big moral way. Instead, it's practical. Shift a barrel here, tuck some sacks under your coat, lift a ham like a sacrament. You stuff what you can into a sack you found leaning against the wall. 2 tin cups of flour, a hunk of salted pork wrapped in oilcloth, a handful of dried apples. It feels obscene to take so much, like taking a blanket off a corpse, but your stomach applauds every scoop. When you stand, the world tilts. The ladder creaks under your weight, and above you, an echo, a footstep. The sheriff. You freeze, the light from your dying match sputtering like a guilty eye. You smell him, pipe tobacco and sweat. A man who thinks himself important because his coat smells faintly of ink. He descends, lantern held high, and for a moment your world is nothing but his face, lined and surprised and then furious. "Thought you could be clever, did you?" he says, as if you owe him a polite explanation. His hand is on the butt of his pistol. In another life, maybe you would bluff, tell him you're just borrowing, that you'll repay him. In this life you tell the truth because it's cheaper. "My brother's sick," you say. You need? He laughs, and it is a sound that has no warmth. "You need? You come down here in the night and take what's mine?" There are rules. Rules. You remember the sermons about sin, about covetousness. You remember the movie versions where rich men learn to soften. The real men don't soften. They count. They keep. They lock. The sheriff steps forward, and for a stupid second you think you can wrestle him. Hunger tightens your jaw like a fist. You lunge because there is no dignity left to lose. Hands on you, rough and methodical. You struggle, breath hot and fast, the cellar suddenly smaller than your chest. You hear a thud, someone outside banging on the door. A shout, a light being knocked. The house wakes. Your world shrinks to the sheriff's eyes, which are cold and unamused, and to the weight of the sack that swings and bashes your knees, and to the taste of iron in your mouth. They drag you out into the snow like a dog. The lanterns glare. People gather. Neighbors in their shawls, faces like moons, curiosity a cruel thing. Your brother's frightened whisper. Not yet. You aren't even sure anyone at home will notice for hours. The sheriff ties your hands and shoves you onto a wagon. The town watches like an audience at a bad play. Someone calls for the gallows because fear loves entertainment. At the square, the preacher stands with his hands folded like a man who always folds the world into neat, safe spaces. He looks at you, and his eyes are disappointed in the way poverty expects. Crime, he intones. Sin. You cough because your breath is a white flag. Someone spits on the ground. You feel every gaze like a coin weighing you down, too heavy to lift. The judge is a blunt man with a ledger and a hunger for order. He speaks in measured tones, and then pronounces something that feels like a guillotine. 20 lashes, he says, and 3 days' labor. The sheriff grins. You taste salt, but it isn't from the sea. It's from your own wet mouth. Your heart hammers against your ribs like a trapped bird. They pull the whip taut. The first lash is a living thing, hot, a belt of pain that answers to a code older than compassion. Your knees buckle, the crowd gasps. Your bones sing. The lashes keep coming, a cruel metronome. You count them because counting keeps you anchored. You think if you can just reach a number, you'll find the place where pain ends. But the numbers keep going, and the pain keeps reinventing itself. By the time the lash ends, your back is a map of fire and blue. You stagger, and the crowd murmurs like a storm. They shove you toward the workhouse, where your hands will be told what to do and when. You could die right there and the town would cluck their tongues and go warm themselves by their meager hearths. The sheriff pockets a coin someone gave him for his trouble, and his hands smell of money and rot. On the wagon home, you press your cheek to the wood and imagine your brother's face. You imagine him not knowing where you are, or worse, knowing and counting you as one more absence. The winter air bites at your exposed skin, and you think about the irony. You stole to keep your brother alive, and the town stole your dignity for sport. Somewhere between theft and punishment, meaning becomes a currency none of you can spend. At the workhouse door, a woman, thin, forearm scarred, eyes like shuttered windows, locks you in. You belong to the house now, she says, and there's no cruelty in it, only business. You enter, and the smell is of hard bread and harder luck. They give you a palette and a spoon and a slate of labor that will chew at you for days. You lie awake that night, ribs still burning, a dull ember of rage smoldering under the bruises. It isn't just the lashes, it's the small cumulative thefts, the cattle that grew thin, the church bells that tolled for babies, the sheriff who divides the world into what's kept and what's given up. You breathe shallow and think of the sacks in the cellar, how close you came to dragging them back like cargo, of how close you came to saving a life. And just before sleep, your last thought is a small, stubborn, private thing. Maybe this is the moment that proves you exist. Not because the town will remember, but because you tried, because you reached, because you loved someone enough to risk everything. It's not a happy thought. It's not a movie ending. It's a stubborn ember. The workhouse wakes before dawn. You don't so much wake as you're dragged into the rhythm of it. Bells clanging, boots scraping, coughs echoing against stone. You push yourself off the pallet, every muscle groaning from lashes that still sting like open mouths. The air is sour with sweat and coal dust. Someone shoves a tin cup of grey porridge into your hand. You stare at it. It stares back. You eat anyway. Hunger doesn't care about flavor. The overseer marches you out with the others, a line of hollow-eyed ghosts chained together not by iron but by poverty. You're handed a shovel, the handle rough and splintering, and pointed at the road. The task is simple. Clear snow, haul gravel, patch ruts. It isn't simple. Your hands blister in the first hour, your back buckles in the second. By the third, you're numb, existing only as a body in motion. You tell yourself you'll last 3 days, then go home, bring your brother what little you can. You tell yourself that, but hope is a fragile thing, and yours is already cracking. By noon the sky is a dull bruise, the clouds heavy with more snow. The men beside you work in silence except when one collapses. He hits the ground with a sound like dropped lumber. The overseer doesn't stop. He just prods the man with his boot and mutters, "Leave him, he'll freeze solid and we'll bury him later." You stare too long and the overseer snaps, "Keep moving, thief." The word clings. Thief. It's easier for them to call you that than to see you as hungry. Thief is clean. Hunger is messy. By the time the bell rings to stop, your arms are rubber and your lashes feel raw again, the sweat burning salt into the wounds. They herd you back into the house like livestock and you drop onto the pallet. You think about your brother again. You picture him curled in the blanket, waiting. Does he know you're alive? Does he think you abandoned him? The thought is worse than the whip. On the second day, a whisper spreads among the workers. Someone saw your brother wandering near the workhouse. Someone said he was asking for you. You bolt upright at the mention, but when you ask, nobody answers. Faces close, eyes turn away. Hope is dangerous. Nobody wants to feed it. You lie awake all night, straining for any sound outside the barred windows. The third day, your body is beyond exhaustion. You move because moving is simpler than standing still. When the bell finally tolls release, your legs nearly give under you. The overseer tosses you your coat, sneering. Try stealing again, and you'll get the rope. You mutter nothing, your throat is too raw to argue. You stumble through town, the world blurring into snow and smoke. Your body aches for warmth, for your brother's voice. But when you push open the cabin door, the silence cuts. He isn't on the straw bed. The blanket is empty. The air smells of cold ash. Your stomach drops. You rush outside, asking neighbors if they've seen him. They shrug, some with pity, some with annoyance. Kids vanish all the time, they say. Sickness takes them. Hunger takes them. Sometimes they just wander into the woods and don't come back. Your heart is a drumbeat of panic. You search the barn, nothing. The creek, nothing. You scream his name into the wind until your throat is raw, but only the trees answer. At dusk, you drag yourself back to the cabin, hollow. You collapse on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The roof beam drips again, a slow, mocking rhythm. You imagine your brother out there somewhere, coughing into the dark, calling for you. The guilt presses harder than the whip ever did. That night, you dream. In the dream, Clarence finally shows up, but he's not an angel. He's a skeleton in a tattered cloak, voice dry as paper. "You want to know what life would be like without you," he rasps. He shows you a vision. Your brother still starving, still coughing, still fading, because the world doesn't change when one person vanishes. Hunger doesn't care about sacrifice. The vision makes you laugh bitterly, and Clarence laughs with you until the sound echoes like bones rattling in a box. You wake sweating, the taste of iron still in your mouth. The next morning you find him. Not alive, not curled on the straw. He's by the creek, face pale, lips blue, eyes half open, like he was still waiting for you to bring food. The sight buckles your knees. You drop beside him, clutching his small body, rocking back and forth in the snow. People pass by, pretending not to look. Someone murmurs, "Another one." The church bell clangs again, announcing his death like a calendar reminder. You scream. The sound claws out of you, raw and animal, carrying through the air until it cracks into silence. No one stops. No one helps. The town just absorbs the noise and keeps moving. You bury him with your bare hands because you don't have a spade. The ground is frozen, the soil biting your fingers, but you dig anyway. Each handful of dirt feels like betrayal. When you cover his face at last, you whisper, "I tried," but the words are ash. Back in the cabin, alone now, you sit in the dark. The silence presses. Your stomach twists. The future is a long, empty hallway with no doors. You realize something brutal. This was never your story. Not like in the movie. There's no lesson, no redemption, just survival, until you can't. You laugh. The sound is hollow. It echoes in the small cabin like the ghost of a Christmas that never came. The silence doesn't stay silence. It curdles. It seeps. It becomes something sharp that scrapes at your ribs every time you breathe. Grief is supposed to drown you, right? Soft, endless waves pulling you under. Yours doesn't drown. Yours burns. Your brother's face won't leave your eyes, pale and stiff, and every time you blink, you see him waiting for you to bring food that never came. You sit at the table, staring at the cracks in the wood until your nails dig grooves into your palms. The fireless hearth mocks you. The room feels like a coffin you forgot to nail shut. And through it all, one thought keeps crawling back, sharp as a nail you can't spit out. The sheriff has a cellar full of food. You picture the sacks stacked high, the apples glowing like jewels in the lantern light. You picture his smug face when he caught you, when he called you thief as if hoarding wasn't theft in its own way. You picture the whip. You picture the crowd staring like hungry dogs, waiting for you to bleed, and something inside you decides. Revenge isn't noble. It isn't righteous. It's just a shape you step into because you've got nothing else left. And right now, revenge feels warmer than any fire. That night, you sharpen the little knife on a stone until the blade hums when you run your finger along it. You wrap yourself in your coat, ragged as it is, and you walk. The streets are quiet, just the crunch of your boots and the distant bark of a dog. The moon is hidden behind clouds, the dark thick enough to swallow you. Perfect. The sheriff's house looms, smug and solid, a square jaw of wood and brick, the kind of house that says, "I get to live while you freeze." The lamp in the window burns steady. You creep toward the cellar hatch again, the one that felt like a mouth before. Tonight it's still a mouth, open, waiting, but now you're the teeth. You slip inside. The air smells the same, salt and smoke, but you don't light a match this time. You don't need to see. You move by memory, by the burn etched into your brain. You find the barrels, the crates, the stairs, and then footsteps. Heavy, sure, the sheriff descending again, maybe to check his treasures. You don't freeze this time. You step forward. The knife is already in your hand, blade cold and eager. When the lantern flares, you're not caught in it like prey. You're rising into it like a shadow. The sheriff sees you and his mouth opens, ready to sneer, ready to spit that word thief again. But he doesn't get the chance. You drive the knife forward, clumsy but fast, fueled by something more powerful than aim. It sinks. The sound is dull, wet, a noise that will never leave your ears. He gasps. A wet cough, lanterns swinging wildly, shadows thrashing on the walls. He grabs at you, but his strength is fading. When he collapses, the lantern tips. Oil spills. Flame licks the floor. The cellar breathes fire like it's been waiting for this. You stagger back, heart hammering, knife slick in your grip. The sheriff twitches once more, then stills. His face is just another shadow in the orange light. Panic claws at you. The fire is spreading fast. You grab what you can. One sack of flour, a chunk of meat, a handful of apples, and scramble up the ladder. Behind you, the flames roar louder, chewing through barrels, racing toward the house above. By the time you burst into the street, the windows are glowing, smoke pouring from the roof. Neighbors are already rushing out, shouting, pointing. Someone screams, "Fire!" Another, "The sheriff's house." The bell tolls again, not for death this time, but for alarm. You clutch the sack to your chest and stumble into the dark, disappearing into the chaos. You don't stop running until your lungs are knives and your legs are rubber. When you finally collapse in the snow outside town, the house is just a glow on the horizon, smoke curling into the night sky like a signal flare. You laugh, half cough, half hiccup, and the sound terrifies even you. You've killed a man, burnt his house, stolen his food, and for the first time you feel full. Not in your stomach, not yet, but in your chest, full of something hot and dangerous. Back in your cabin, the silence is different, not empty anymore, charged. You dump the sack onto the table, hands trembling. Apples roll across the wood, red and bruised, but real. You bite into one. The taste is sharp, sweet, shocking after weeks of rot. Juice runs down your chin. For a moment you almost forget. Almost. Then you glance at the empty straw bed where your brother should be. The taste turns bitter. You chew anyway. By morning the town is buzzing. The sheriff is dead, the house gone, the food reduced to ash. Whispers slither through the streets. Accident, sabotage, justice, murder. Nobody says your name, not yet. But eyes linger longer when you walk by. Conversations stop. The preacher's sermon swells with fire and brimstone warnings. And you, well, you just keep eating your apples. Because what else can you do? Grief didn't leave you. It just changed clothes. Now it walks beside you in boots and carries a knife. At first it feels like maybe you got away with it. The sheriff's house is gone, reduced to a pile of black bones and hissing embers. His body, what was left of it, was carried out under a blanket, and the town muttered about God's judgment and careless fire. Nobody pointed fingers. Not yet. You sat in your cabin chewing dried apples like a king, pretending for half a second that you'd won. But whispers grow like frost. Slow at first, quiet, then spreading until the whole street crunches with it. You walk to fetch water, and suddenly eyes stick on you too long. A woman clutches her child tighter when you pass. Men nod at each other when your back is turned. You can feel it, the town shaping you into something uglier than hunger. Monster, murderer, devil's hand. The preacher feeds it. Sunday comes and his voice booms through the church like thunder rattling in a coffin. A thief walks among us. A wolf in sheep's clothing. Look around you. Who has grown fat while others starve? The congregation murmurs. Some glance at you, some don't. But the seed is planted. It's only a matter of time. You stop going to town. Too many eyes, too many whispers. You hole up in the cabin with your dwindling sack of food, chewing meat in the dark, staring at the empty bed where your brother should be. It's better this way, you tell yourself. Safer. But the walls press closer every night. Silence isn't peace anymore. It's teeth. And then the knock comes. 3 sharp raps on your door, like judgment in wood. You freeze. Knife already in your hand. Another knock. Louder. A voice. Open up. It's not a request. You crack the door. 3 men stand there, lanterns casting sharp shadows across their faces. Not officials, neighbors. One has a shovel. Another grips a rope. Their eyes are flat, the kind of eyes that already decided what you are. Evening, one says, voice too casual. We've been talking about the fire, about the sheriff. Thought maybe you knew something. Your throat dries. I don't. He tilts his head. Funny thing. You've been eating better than the rest of us. Word gets around, apples, pork. His smile is thin. Where'd you come by all that? You grip the knife tighter, hidden by the doorframe. None of your business. The man with the rope takes a step forward. It's everyone's business when there's a killer among us. Killer. The word lands like a hammer. You want to scream that you did it for your brother, that you had no choice, that hunger is its own noose. But their faces don't want reasons. They want blood. Your chest pounds. Your hand trembles. You slam the door shut, bolt it. They pound on it, shouting, voices overlapping like hounds baying. Murderer! Thief! Come out, coward! The wood shakes, dust raining from the beams. For a moment you think they'll break it down. Then silence. Heavy, waiting. You don't sleep that night. You sit at the table, knife glinting in the dim light, listening for footsteps. Every creak is a threat. Every gust of wind a warning. By dawn your eyes burn, your thoughts blur. You know one thing. They won't stop. So you change. If they'll treat you like a monster, you'll become one. It's easier than fighting the tide. The hunger, the grief, the whispers, they fuse into something harder than bone. You aren't surviving anymore. You're taking. You wait until nightfall. You slip into town, quiet as frost, knife tucked against your chest. The bakery's window is cracked, the smell of stale bread seeping out. You smash it, grab what you can, vanish before anyone stirs. The rush is dizzying, a hot flood in your veins. You do it again the next night. Wood from Mrs. Taylor's stack, jerky from the butcher's shed. Each theft easier than the last. The town grows paranoid. Locks appear on doors, shutters nailed tight. Men take shifts patrolling with lanterns and rifles. But fear makes them sloppy. You learn their routes, their habits, their blind spots. You slip between them like smoke. And the more you take, the more you like it. The way your heart races, the way the night wraps around you, the way the town scurries like frightened mice. It feels like control, like power, like life in a world that only offered death. One night you find yourself back at the church. The preacher's window glows faintly. Inside he kneels, mumbling prayers, his back bent like a question mark. You watch him through the glass, knife pressed to your palm. He called you a wolf. Maybe he was right. Maybe it's time to show him the teeth. But you don't break in. Not yet. You turn away, footsteps crunching in the snow. You're not ready. Or maybe you're saving him for last. By the end of the week, your name isn't even your name anymore. It's a hiss, a curse, a story mothers whisper to their children. Stay in bed or he'll come for you. You hear it in the wind, in the shuffle of boots, in the clang of the church bell. And instead of fear, you feel something close to satisfaction. Your brother's gone. The sheriff's gone. The town hates you. Fine, let them. You chew your stolen bread, your stolen meat, and let the whispers spread. Because maybe this is your wonderful life. Not the one with angels and redemption, but the one with fire, hunger, and knives. And deep down, you realize something you can't admit out loud. For the first time since Christmas morning, you aren't just surviving. You're alive. The first time you hear it, you think it's just another church bell. But this clang is sharper, faster, a rhythm that doesn't belong to worship. It's the sound of alarm. You freeze where you stand, half a loaf of stolen bread still clutched in your hand. Then, the shouts come. Dozens of voices rising in the dark, carried on the wind like wolves howling. They've stopped whispering. Tonight they've decided. You're not a rumor anymore. You're prey. You duck into an alley, chest heaving, the bread still warm against your palm. Lanterns flare to life across town, bobbing like angry stars. Shadows stretch long and broken as men fan out with rifles, shovels, ropes. You hear your name spat like poison. Find him. Bring the bastard out. Devil's thief. Your heartbeat is so loud it drowns the wind. You press your back against the wall, knife slick in your grip. For a second you wonder if you should give yourself up. End it. Let them drag you into the square, string you up and ring the bell one last time in your honor. But then you think of your brother's face by the creek, lips blue, eyes half open, and you run. Snow crunches beneath your boots, each step a flare in the silence. You dart behind barns, under fences, past windows glowing faintly with candlelight. Dogs bark, straining at their chains. You hear a bullet crack in the distance, sharp and mean. Someone saw you. You don't look back. The forest looms ahead, black and crooked, branches clawing at the sky. You plunge in, branches whipping your face, snow swallowing your legs. The shouts grow fainter behind you, but the hunt doesn't stop. They'll follow. They'll keep following. Because mobs don't sleep when they smell blood. You stumble into a clearing, gasping, chest on fire. The moon slides out from behind the clouds, painting the snow silver. For a moment, the world is still. You drop the bread, tear off a chunk, chew mechanically, jaw stiff. Each bite tastes like dirt and guilt, but you swallow anyway. Footsteps crunch behind you. You spin, knife raised, just one man, lantern swinging, rifle slung over his shoulder. He's young, face pale, eyes darting like a rabbit's. He freezes when he sees you. His mouth opens, maybe to call out, maybe to beg. You don't wait to find out. You lunge. The knife flashes, his lantern drops, the snow erupts in sparks. He falls with a strangled gasp, blood already soaking the white. You stand over him, panting, knife trembling in your hand. He's not the sheriff. He's not the preacher. He's just a boy who thought he was part of something bigger. And now, he's part of you. The shouts are closer now. You grab the lantern, smash it against a tree, and vanish deeper into the forest. Hours blur. The night is endless. Your lungs ache, your legs scream, but adrenaline drags you forward. Every shadow looks like a figure, every crack of branch a gunshot. By dawn, you're miles from town, crouched beneath a fallen pine, shivering in the cold. The mob is gone, for now, but you know they'll be back. They'll keep looking, and every corpse they find along the way will make them hate you more. You close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come. Instead, visions. The sheriff's cellar burning, your brother's pale face, the boy in the snow, blood steaming in the moonlight. Each one presses on you, stacking, heavy as stone. You wonder how long until they crush you. When the sun finally cracks the horizon, you drag yourself up. Your body feels foreign, stitched together with hunger and fear. You wander deeper into the woods, away from the smoke curling from town chimneys, away from the bells. But the forest isn't silent. You hear crows, their calls sharp and mocking. You hear the creak of branches, like gallows ropes. You hear your own breath, ragged, proof you're still here, alive though you're not sure that's a blessing. By midday you stumble onto a hunter's trap, a steel jaw half buried in the snow, teeth glinting. For a second, you think about stepping into it, letting it snap, ending it quick. But you don't. Not yet. You step around it, knife clutched tight. Because maybe you're not prey anymore. Maybe you're something else. By nightfall, you circle back toward town. You can see it from the ridge, lights flickering, smoke rising. You hear the distant murmur of voices, angry, fearful. You know they're talking about you, planning, sharpening blades. And you smile, a thin, cracked smile that doesn't feel like yours. They want a monster. Fine, you'll give them one. You creep down the slope, back toward the edge of town, back toward the game you didn't ask for but refused to lose. You woke the next morning feeling hollow and dangerous, like the sin in your chest had become a living thing that needed to be fed. The ridge gave you a view of the town, smoke ribbons, the church spire like an accusing finger, and you watched the people below prepare as if for a funeral procession where you were the corpse. They nailed shutters, bolted doors, sharpened stakes. They decorated for war. You move like smoke. You've learned their rhythms, the baker's route to the mill, the milkman's pause by the lane, the preacher's habit of walking home alone after evening prayers. Patterns are a kind of map, and you are a thief of maps now. Each night you follow one, a careful thief, march around their comforts, testing what they fear to lose. You don't kill for sport anymore. You take what keeps their hearths warm: coal, kindling, sugar, a bolt of cloth. You leave a calling card sometimes. A torn piece of the sheriff's shirt scorched at the edge, the memory of the blaze you started. The message is simple, remember. They call you demon in the church. They call you avenger at the blacksmith's forge. Some whisper you're a ghost of famine. Others swear you were always one of them and the snow simply stripped the good skin from your bones. They don't agree on anything but this: you are a story to be terrified by. Your raids become sharper. You plan. You note the patrol rotations, the blind spots. You move at dusk, silent as a fox, and slip into yards where the moon lays long white hands over the snow. You strike quickly, cut a rope, tip a cart, slide open a shutter and take. No faces turned toward you, no time for slogans, only impact, only results. You start to watch the town as if it's an animal you have to outwit, and the animal learns to limp where you step. One night, you find a ledger in the ruins of the sheriff's office. Counting, names, favors, a list of men who supply him with goods in exchange for protection. Names you recognize, names you thought private. You tuck the book into your coat like contraband. Information is a different kind of weapon. You start to use it. You leave anonymous notes at doorsteps, small, cold accusations, reminders that the sheriff was not an isolated tyrant. The town begins to look inward. Fingers are pointing sideways now. Greed becomes contagious. Guilt begins to sting. Yet the hunting line tightens. Men with rifles spread further into the woods. Dogs are taken off chains. Children are kept inside. The preacher organizes watches, and his sermons turn clinical, surgical. Sin must be excised, the wound cauterized. He names you every Sunday, not as a pitied man, but as a threat that must be removed. The town's fear is a drum they beat to sleep. You watch all of this through the slats of a broken fence, hands wrapped around a stolen jug of spirits that tastes like a memory of warmth. For a moment you feel monstrous and holy at once, like a prophet who's forgotten whether God listens. You drink, and the heat crawls through your body, loosening the knots of thought. You think of your brother kneeling by the stream, of the funeral hole, of the way people walked past without touching the soil. You think of the boy you killed with the lantern and how his eyes were full of pride that morning, like he had a place in the world and you took it. The image jolts something loose in you. Not guilt exactly. A new map of consequence. You begin to choose differently. You still take because you must, because the hunger is animal and immediate, but you also start to leave small mercies, a bag of flour hidden under the millstone for a pair of children you once saw playing in the snow, a scrap of cloth loosely thrown over the back step of the widow 2 lanes down. It's a private calculus, an accounting for the sins that don't cancel. The divide between monster and savior makes you dizzy. You live on the seam. This middle space, that crooked line between vengeance and charity, complicates the story in ways you don't expect. Rumors reach you that some in town are starting to suspect a network. Maybe you're not alone. Maybe there are others who took advantage of the chaos. That thought comforts you briefly. If there are others, your cruelty isn't yours alone. But then the ledger's names reappear in your head, and you understand the uglier truth. Sometimes the rot sits on 2 legs and smiles at church. The first direct confrontation comes without bells. It's quiet, built like a trap. You slip into an alley expecting to find a cache of wood, but instead there are footprints, fresh, multiple, too organized to be the random patrol. Lanterns shine suddenly, harsh and close. Hands grab you from either side. You're not surprised, you've put yourself in danger 100 times. You fight because muscle remembers the rhythm of survival faster than fear. A fist meets your ribs. Pain blooms. You taste blood. They drag you into the town square this time, not to the gallows, but to expose. They want you watched, catalogued, dehumanized. The preacher mounts a crate and declaims. Someone reads passages from the ledger aloud, names folded into accusation like the paper itself is hungry. People step forward and accuse someone else. Neighbors pointing at neighbors, old debts spilled like rotten fruit. The spectacle is not just about you, it's about control. The town constricts like a fist around its own fear, squeezing out any doubt that they too have a part in the theft. Then a voice rises from the crowd, small, trembling, impossible to stop. A woman who had once watched you bring apples to a widow speaks up. She remembers the flower at the millstone. She remembers the bandaged hands of someone who had delivered wood and then refused payment. The word forgiveness slips out like a warm thing in winter. The square stirs. Silence tastes different now, less hungry and a little ashamed. That moment breaks the simple story they had written for you. Monster, devil, thief. A whisper of mercy peels back the edges. Men exchange glances. The ledger is still on the crate, its pages open to names that make the town look like a mirror. The preacher's sermon falters for the first time. His voice loses its iron. They bring you before them anyway. The law is a shape they know how to fill. They could hang you, they could string you up and call it an example. But in the hollow that has been carved out by weeks of fear, another thing is happening. The town is starting to choose itself. Some want you dead. Some want to feed you until you crumble into nothing. They argue. Their words tangle into definitions of justice that can't hold the complexity of what happened. In the end, they don't come to a single answer. They come to a decision that looks like a compromise, a trial, small and brutal. A sentence that is both punishment and spectacle. They will bind you, make you work, then exile you when the spring comes, if you live that long. It's a verdict that tastes like both mercy and practical forgetting. As they haul you off, there's a hand that slips you something small and wrapped in cloth. Not a threat, not a lecture, just a piece of bread. The giver meets your eyes for a heartbeat and looks away. For a moment everything pauses, the bell, the smoke, the ledger, and you understand. The town is not a single body. It is a crowd of cracked hearts making tiny, messy choices. You don't know which is worse, being hunted or being pitied. They tie your wrists with rough rope, the kind that bites into skin until every heartbeat feels like splinters. You stumble through the snow, dragged toward the church, because of course the church is where judgment happens. The bell above clangs steady, announcing the spectacle, summoning every soul in town like moths to a flame. The crowd gathers fast. Men in wool coats, women clutching shawls tight, children pressed forward even though their mothers hiss at them to stay back, faces pale from winter but flushed from curiosity. Nothing warms a starving town like a public trial. They shove you inside, into the nave. The pews creak under the weight of neighbors. The preacher stands at the pulpit, ledger in hand, his voice booming. This is a man who betrayed his own kin. This is a man who burned, who stole, who struck down his brother as Cain did Abel. The crowd gasps like it's theater. You almost laugh. Cain killed out of jealousy. You killed out of hunger. Try fitting that into scripture. They call witnesses. First is the boy's father, the one you killed in the forest. He steps forward, face drawn tight, voice trembling. My son left home to serve the town. He never came back, but I know who took him. His eyes spear you, and you feel the weight of his grief like a stone lodged in your throat. Then a woman speaks, the widow you left flour for. Her voice is small, hesitant. He helped me, when no one else did. The preacher cuts her off. Do not be deceived by the devil's crumbs. Wolves wear sheepskin. The crowd murmurs, but not all of them agree. You see doubt flicker in some eyes. Next, the overseer from the workhouse. He testifies about your lashes, about your theft. He calls you unrepentant. You almost want to thank him for the compliment. Finally, the preacher reads from the ledger, each name a nail hammered into your coffin. Deals, debts, corruption that rotted the town long before you ever sharpened a knife. He doesn't realize the irony, or maybe he does and prays the crowd won't notice. But some notice. You see them shifting in the pews, exchanging quick, sharp glances. When it's your turn to speak, the preacher waves his hand like a king, allowing a condemned man a final word. Your throat is dry, but your voice comes rough and steady. You call me thief, you say. But who hoarded food while children froze? Who kept cellars full while bell after bell tolled for the hungry? You call me killer, but what killed more? My knife or your rules? The silence is thick. You go on. My brother died by the creek while the sheriff's cellar burst with apples. He coughed himself into the dirt while you sang hymns about charity. And now you stand here and call me the devil. Maybe I am, but at least the devil feeds the hungry. Your words land like stones dropped into a frozen pond. Ripples, cracks. Some faces harden, some soften, some turn away. The preacher slams the ledger shut, veins straining in his neck. Enough! This is no confession, this is poison. The jury, if you can call it that, is just a group of men at the front pew, nodding like bobbing crows. They step aside, whisper, confer. The whole thing takes less than 5 minutes. Then one of them stands, clears his throat and announces, "Guilty. Punishment. 30 lashes and exile at first thaw." The crowd exhales. Not death, not the rope. A spectacle and a sentence that removes you without making you a martyr. The preacher looks disappointed. He wanted fire and brimstone, but he bows his head like he accepts it. They drag you outside into the square. Snow swirls in the air, thick and relentless. They strip your coat from your back, tie you to the post. The whip cracks. Once, twice, 30 times. Each lash is a river of pain, fire across your shoulders, blood freezing before it hits the ground. The crowd watches, breath steaming, eyes wide. Some cheer, some can't. Some just stare, hollow. When it's done, you slump against the post, body trembling, skin raw. They cut you loose, toss your coat at your feet like an afterthought. "Survive until spring," one of them mutters. Then you go, and don't come back. The mob disperses, murmuring, voices folding into the wind. Children are pulled back home, lanterns dim. The square empties, leaving you crumpled in the snow. Rope burns on your wrists, blood stiff on your back. You force yourself up. Each movement is agony, but you walk, dragging yourself toward your cabin, toward the silence waiting inside. You collapse on the straw, the ceiling beams spinning above. You think of your brother again. You think of the sheriff. You think of the boy with the lantern. And you wonder, if exile is survival, what kind of life is that? A ghost haunting the edges of towns, a name mothers whisper, a shadow in the snow. Maybe that's what you've always been becoming. You close your eyes. The wind rattles the shutters. Somewhere far off, the bell tolls again. You've lost track of who it's for. Winter does not end with a flourish. It doesn't melt into spring like the paintings, with blossoms popping and lambs frolicking. No. In 1875, winter drags itself out like a drunk uncle, long, sour, overstaying. The snow rots into mud, the air smells of wet wood and animal dung, and the rivers bloat until the bridges groan. By the time they tell you it's spring, it feels more like another season of punishment, just one that doesn't freeze your tears solid. You've survived the weeks after the lashes by sheer spite. Your back scabbed, cracked, and bled again each time you bent over to fetch water. The whispers didn't stop. Neighbors walked past your cabin like it was cursed. Children dared each other to touch the door and run. Every night you heard voices in the dark, testing whether you'd strike again. But you didn't. You ate the last of your sack, counted your breaths, and waited for exile. And then the day comes. They don't gather in a mob this time. No sermon, no spectacle. Just 3 men with rifles, standing at your door at dawn. "Time," one says. The word is short, blunt. You don't ask, "Time for what?" You already know. They give you no cart, no horse, not even bread. Just point you down the road like you're a dog they're shooing away. "Head west," one says. "Keep walking till the woods swallow you. If you're seen back here, it's the rope." His eyes are cold. Maybe he means it. Maybe he hopes you'll die faster than they can string you up. You start walking. The mud sucks at your boots. The road stretches endlessly, lined with bare trees just beginning to bud. Behind you, the bell rings once. One final farewell, though you can't tell if it's meant for you or against you. You don't look back. Hours pass. The town shrinks into a smear of smoke and rooftops. The forest grows taller, darker. Your shoulders ache, your stomach gnaws, but there's a strange freedom in the absence of eyes. For the first time in months, nobody is watching you. No preacher spitting sermons, no neighbors muttering, no children whispering monster. Just you, the road, and the crows circling overhead. By evening, hunger claws. You find a stream and drink until your stomach sloshes. You pull bark from a birch tree and chew it, bitter and stringy. You tear at roots with your knife. Everything tastes like dirt. You keep walking. Nights are worse. The forest talks to itself, branches creaking, owls calling, something large moving in the brush. You build no fire. Fire means eyes. Fire means discovery. Instead, you curl in the mud, pulling your coat tight, dreaming of your brother's face. Each time he looks at you differently, sometimes accusing, sometimes grateful, sometimes blank as stone. You wake with your heart hammering, unsure if you've been forgiven or condemned. Days blur, the road forks, and you take the path that looks least traveled. You see no houses, no barns, no smoke, just trees, endless waiting. You wonder if exile is even necessary. Maybe the land itself will finish you. But then, one morning, you find it. A cabin, small, crooked, leaning like it's tired of standing. Smoke curls faintly from the chimney. You freeze in the tree line, knife in hand. Another family? A trap? You creep closer, each step soft, until you see her. An old woman, stooped, stacking wood. Her hands tremble, her back is bent, but her eyes, when they lift to you, are steady. She doesn't scream. She doesn't run. She just says, "You hungry?" The words cut deeper than the whip. You want to say no, want to play the monster, but your stomach betrays you with a growl. She nods, as if that's all the answer she needed, and beckons you inside. The cabin is warmer than yours ever was. A pot simmers over the fire, thin broth but real, steaming. She ladles some into a bowl and hands it to you. Your hands shake as you hold it. You sip. Salt, meat, warmth. It almost breaks you. "Who are you?" you finally ask. "Nobody," she says. "Same as you." You don't tell her your name. You don't tell her the town's version either. You eat in silence, staring at the flames, feeling the heat seep into your bones. Days pass. She lets you stay. Doesn't ask questions. You chop her wood, patch her roof, fetch water. She feeds you scraps. Teaches you which roots won't kill you. How to set snares for rabbits. She never preaches, never pries. She just treats you like a person. It unnerves you, makes you restless. You catch yourself staring at the door, expecting men with rifles to burst in. You wake at night clutching your knife, listening for bells. None come. Only the crackle of fire and the soft snore of the old woman. One evening she says, "I heard about a man. Town to the east said he burned their sheriff alive. Said he walked off into the snow and never came back. Some say he was the devil. Some say he was justice. Which do you think he was?" Your throat tightens. You stare into your bowl. "Maybe both." She nods like that's the only answer that makes sense, and for the first time since Christmas morning, you feel something strange. Not joy, not hope, just the faintest flicker of being seen. The road stretches ahead. You're still in exile, still hunted, still haunted, but maybe in the cracks of this broken world, there are places that don't care about Cain or angels or sermons, places where survival isn't a sin. You finish your broth, set down the bowl, and listen to the forest breathe. The old woman doesn't call you guest or stranger or thief. She calls you boy, even though your face is carved deeper than your years. At first it irritates you, then it settles like a bandage. Tight, itchy, but keeping you together. She never asks what you did, never says what she knows. But the way she watches you with those stone-grey eyes tells you she's guessed enough. Spring sharpens into summer. The forest greens, thick with buzzing insects. Rivers fattened by snowmelt. Your hands harden from chopping wood, from setting traps, from pulling weeds in her crooked little garden. You eat better than you have in years, though better is still rabbit bones, bitter greens, a potato every now and then. Hunger doesn't vanish, but it loosens its grip. You find yourself sleeping without waking at every branch crack. Still, the ghosts don't leave. Your brother comes most nights, sitting by your pallet, coughing softly, his eyes glassy. The boy you killed flickers behind trees, his lantern swinging. The sheriff appears in the flames, sneering. You tell yourself they're dreams, but they feel heavier than that, like you're dragging them behind you everywhere you walk. One evening, the old woman says, "You think the dead care what you do now?" You glance at her, startled, but she doesn't look up from her knitting. They don't. They're busy being dead. You're the one still carrying them. Maybe you like the weight. You don't answer. She chuckles, toothless and sharp. Figures. Word of you trickles in with travelers. The old woman trades herbs for gossip, and sometimes you sit near the door, pretending not to listen. In one town, you're the fire thief. In another, the devil of Bedford Hollow. A story circulates that you slit throats and drank blood. Another says you fed orphans in secret. The tales contradict, but that doesn't matter. You've become a shape, a warning, a bedtime threat. Parents hiss, "Stay inside or he'll come for you." Others whisper your name with something close to admiration, as if you were the punishment rich men deserve. At first you laugh bitterly, then you realize something chilling. The story is freer than you are. It travels where you can't. It eats better than you. It survives longer than you'll live. You are already dead, and only the story remains. By autumn you can't sit still. The forest feels like a cage. The old woman senses it. She doesn't try to stop you when you pack your knife, a coil of rope, and a satchel of dried herbs she pressed into your hands. She just says, "Whatever you're looking for, boy, don't expect to find it." Stories don't end, they just circle back. You walk. The air smells of wet leaves, sharp and earthy. Roads cut through the forest, and you follow them, always west, always away. Villages appear on the horizon, smoke, spires, barns. You don't enter. You watch from the tree line, listening, and always you hear it. Whispers. "He's real. He burned a sheriff alive. My cousin saw him. He had eyes like coals." You crouch in the brush, clutching your satchel, and realize you become your own shadow. But hunger pushes you forward. One night, you slip into a hamlet, silent as frost. You steal bread cooling on a windowsill, jerky hanging from a hook, a sack of beans by the door. A dog barks, sharp and furious, and lanterns flare. Shouts. Boots. You vanish into the trees before they can form a mob. The bread tastes like guilt again, but you chew. The cycle repeats. Town to town, night to night. You never linger. You never explain. Sometimes you leave scraps for children. Sometimes you take everything. The line between mercy and malice blurs, until even you can't tell which side you're on. One night, you pass through a town square where a preacher is shouting your story. He paints you as Cain, Judas, Lucifer rolled into one. The crowd gasps, spits, crosses themselves. You watch from the shadows, faceless, and almost laugh. They don't realize you're standing 20 feet away, gnawing on their stolen apple. But another night, you overhear something stranger. A group of men by a fire, whispering like conspirators. "Maybe he's right," one says. "The fire thief, maybe he's the only one who understands how the rich bleed us." Another nods. "I'd follow him if he asked." You stand frozen in the dark, apple half-eaten in your hand. Followers, the idea crawls under your skin. You didn't ask for that. You didn't ask to be anything, yet here it is, your shadow growing longer, swallowing strangers, and you realize you're not just a story anymore. You're becoming a symbol. Symbols are dangerous. Symbols live longer than men. By winter's edge, snow returns, sharp and biting. You've traveled far, but the landscape doesn't change much. Trees, barns, churches, smoke. Hunger gnaws again. The satchel is empty. Your knife is dull. You curl beneath a pine one night, shivering, and wonder if maybe this is where it ends. No mob, no sermon, no lash, just cold. But then you hear it, singing, thin, off-key, but real. A family huddled in a cabin nearby, voices straining through "O come, all ye faithful," the same hymn you once heard in your town, the same one you turned away from. It drifts through the night like smoke, fragile but stubborn. You lie there, teeth chattering, and the irony punches you. If It's a Wonderful Life had been set in 1875, this is what it would be. Not bells ringing for angels, but bells tolling for the dead, hymns sung through hunger, stories of monsters whispered in place of miracles. And you, well, you've become the monster, or maybe the miracle. The line is gone. You close your eyes, letting the hymn wash over you, and laugh quietly into the snow. Because if survival is the only Christmas gift left, then maybe, just maybe, you've already unwrapped it. Snow comes heavy again, late in the year, as if the sky never learned how to do anything else. The trees hunch under white weight, barns creak, and smoke crawls reluctantly from chimneys. Christmas, if you can even call it that, arrives like a sick joke, an anniversary of hunger, a reminder that bells don't mean angels. You walk a road dusted in frost, boots torn, satchel empty. Each breath burns your chest. You've been on the move for weeks, and the faces of towns blur together. Some slam doors when they see you. Some drop their gaze and mutter. Some whisper prayers like you're a plague drifting past. You're not sure which feels worse, fear or pity. Both dig into your ribs the same way. This night is Christmas Eve. At least, you think so. Dates lose meaning when every day is just snow and hunger, but the singing gives it away. Thin voices spilling from cabins, rising into the black sky. Not joyful, desperate. Songs to keep the dark from swallowing them whole. You stop by a fence, crouching low, watching through the slats. Inside, a family sits around a crooked tree strung with scraps of cloth. A single candle flickers in a jar. They break bread, so little, it looks like air with crust, and pass it in solemn turns. The children chew as if it's a feast. The father bows his head, muttering a prayer of thanks that tastes like begging. Your chest tightens. You remember your brother's cracked lips, the way his eyes followed the milk pail, the way he never got another Christmas. The memory rips into you like the whip, fresh and raw even now. You grip the fence until the wood creaks. For a moment, you think about walking in, about knocking on the door, offering your knife, your story, your shadow as currency. Maybe they'd feed you, maybe they'd scream, maybe both. But you don't move, because you know what they'd see. Not a starving man, not a wanderer, the fire thief, the monster. The devil whispered to children, so you step back into the snow, silent. The road swallows you again. Your breath clouds. The hymn from the cabin trails after you, faint, breaking apart in the wind. You keep walking, always walking. By midnight, the sky is clear, stars pricking the black like nails through cloth. You collapse by a frozen stream, body aching, stomach a hollow drum. You look up at the stars, thinking of the movie you never lived. The bells ringing, the angel, the whole town gathering to save one man. You snort, a bitter laugh that steams in the air. In 1875, there are no angels, no miracles, just hunger and graves. And yet, somewhere, in some other cabin, someone is telling a story about you right now. You know it. A father muttering to his son, "Stay close to home, or the fire thief will find you." A widow whispering, "He stole food once and gave it to me when no one else did." A preacher thundering, "He is Cain, proof of sin in flesh." 3 versions of you, none of them true, all of them alive. You realize then that maybe this is the only wonderful life you were ever meant to have. Not yours, but theirs. A story to scare, a story to comfort, a story to explain hunger when nothing else does. You've become their ghost of Christmas, twisted and ragged, but unforgettable. Your stomach growls again. You close your eyes, pressing your face into the snow, and whisper to your brother, "At least they won't forget us." The stream gurgles faintly beneath the ice. The wind rattles the branches. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls. Not for angels, not for joy, for another body lowered into frozen ground. You can't tell if it's yours. And that's the cruelest gift of all. You've become more alive as a myth than you ever were as a man. Merry Christmas. Years pass. Winters pile like corpses, each one heavier than the last. And though your body may have folded somewhere in the snow, face down by a stream, or curled beneath a pine, or simply vanished into the white, your story refuses to stay buried. It mutates. It grows teeth. Children in cabins whisper about you on Christmas Eve, daring each other to leave scraps of bread outside the door. "If you don't," one child hisses, "the fire thief will come scratching at the window." Some say you take food from greedy tables and leave it for the poor. Others swear you crawl down chimneys to snatch children from their beds. The irony is so thick it could choke. You are both saint and demon, depending on who's telling the tale. Preachers keep your name alive too. They spit it into sermons like a curse, their voices trembling over the flames of their lamps. "Remember what sin births," they warn. "Remember what hunger makes of men." They hold you up as proof that even in small towns, evil grows if unchecked. Their congregations nod, clutching shawls tighter, staring at the rafters as if your shadow clings there. But not everyone damns you. Around lonely firesides, some whisper the other version, the outlaw messiah. The man who killed the sheriff because the sheriff fattened while children starved. The man who took food not to hoard, but to live, because the town refused to see hunger as anything but weakness. They call you a warning, yes, but also a question. What would you do if it were your brother coughing in the dark? The story spreads down roads, carried in wagons, traded at markets. Your name bends, fractures, reforms. In one village, you're the ash man. In another, the hungry wolf. In a mining town far away, they carve your face into wood, a crude mask with hollow eyes and a jagged mouth. They hang it by the fire to scare children into obedience. And yet sometimes, a sack of food appears at a doorstep with no explanation. A bundle of firewood chopped clean, left in the snow. No tracks, no giver, just gifts. People mutter, was it him? Is he still alive? Or is it someone pretending, wearing the mask of the fire thief like a second skin? Because that's the trick, isn't it? Once a story starts, anyone can wear it. You don't have to breathe to keep haunting. By the 1880s, newspapers pick it up. Columns mocking superstitions in rural towns. They describe you as a bogeyman, a rustic ghost, proof of the ignorance of the poor. City men laugh, sipping brandy, but the name sticks anyway. The fire thief becomes shorthand for famine, for riot, for any man who snaps under hunger. Your story becomes bigger than you ever were. And Christmas, sweet, syrupy Christmas, cannot shake you. Because every year when the nights grow long and the bells toll heavy, the story surfaces. Families lock their doors tighter. Children check the windows. Preachers thunder louder. The fire thief walks again. Do they know you were just a boy with a sick brother, a knife and an empty stomach? Of course not. The details rot away, eaten by time. What remains is sharper. The hunger, the fire, the theft. And hunger never goes out of style. By the turn of the century, you're part of folklore. Songs are sung about you. Harsh, minor melodies warning children to eat their bread slowly, to be thankful. Some even paint you as the anti-Santa, dragging sacks not of toys, but of stolen food, slipping through chimneys to punish the greedy. A shadow in the snow, a fire in the cellar. And here's the irony that curls like smoke. If It's a Wonderful Life is remembered for bells ringing and angels earning wings, your life is remembered for bells tolling and monsters being born. The contrast is almost funny. One man gets a choir of friends saving him from despair. You get generations clutching blankets, whispering your name in the dark. But maybe that's its own kind of immortality. Angels fade with hymns, monsters linger. So every Christmas, long after your bones have crumbled, the fire thief still walks. Through whispers, through sermons, through songs. He knocks at the window, scratches at the door, prowls the frozen road. And the children, wide-eyed, ask the question their parents never answer. Was he real? The truth, your truth, doesn't matter anymore, because the story outlived you. And in the end, maybe that's the only wonderful life anyone in 1875 ever got. History has a habit of sanding edges, polishing the ugly into something easier to sell. Wars become parades. Famines become footnotes. And you, your starving hands, your whip-scarred back, your brother buried by a frozen creek, you become a story told in candlelight, then a pamphlet, then a headline, then a myth. The fire thief never dies, not even when the century does. By the 1920s, your shadow shows up in dime novels. Cheap, sensational paperbacks sold at railway stations. The Curse of the Fire Thief, Christmas Blood in Bedford Hollow. Writers turn you into a villain with glowing eyes, a man who eats coal and spits flames. They give you a lair in the woods, an army of beggars at your side. They never mention hunger. Hunger doesn't sell, fear does. By the 1940s, radio hosts whisper about you on Christmas Eve, long after the children are in bed. Lock your doors, little listeners. A baritone voice chuckles through static, for the fire thief prowls tonight. Mothers roll their eyes, fathers chuckle. But the kids, they lie awake, wide-eyed, ears straining for footsteps in the snow. And while It's a Wonderful Life flickers onto black and white screens, promising angels and redemption, your version circulates under the table. Parents in rural towns retell it, bitter from wars and rationing, teaching their children the Christmas no movie will admit, that sometimes survival is the only gift. By the 1970s, counterculture kids resurrect you as an anti-hero. In half-legal magazines, they draw you with wild hair, a torch in one hand, a sack of bread in the other. They write manifestos about the fire thief, how he stole from the rich, how he punished sheriffs and preachers, how he was the first true Christmas revolutionary. Nobody remembers your brother. Nobody remembers you chewed bark just to feel full. They remember the fire. They remember the knife. In the 1990s, you migrate again, this time onto screens glowing blue in suburban living rooms. Horror shows dig you up. Legends of the Heartland, Episode 6, The Fire Thief of Bedford Hollow. A host with perfect hair stands in a snow-covered cemetery, whispering about a man who stole food, burned a sheriff, and still wanders on Christmas Eve. The reenactment actor wears rags and fake blood. Children watch through their fingers, thrilled, terrified. Somewhere a kid whispers, "What if he's outside right now?" and checks the window. And then the internet. Oh, the internet loves you. Forums in the early 2000s share blurry sightings, a shadow caught in headlights, footprints vanishing into woods. Creepypasta writers turn you into a digital boogeyman. Don't leave cookies out for Santa, or the fire thief will take them instead. Images spread, photoshopped figures with glowing red eyes crouched on snowy roofs. By 2010, you're trending each December. By 2020, TikTok teens light candles and whisper your name into mirrors, daring him to appear. Your myth adapts, like hunger does. Some versions say you steal food from the greedy and leave it for the starving. Others claim you slip through Wi-Fi signals, burning data instead of barns. Some laugh, some shiver, but everyone participates, because nothing spreads faster than fear dressed as tradition. And the bells, always the bells. On YouTube compilations of scary Christmas urban legends, your segment always ends with church bells ringing, distorted and slowed, tolling like a heartbeat. Viewers flood the comments. Why did this one feel real? Why did this story hurt more than Krampus? Why do I feel like I've heard this before? Because you're not just a story, you're a scar. Hunger never left. Poverty never ended. Families still whisper prayers over empty cupboards. And every time Christmas rolls around, every time people pretend it's all joy and miracles, the fire thief slips back through the cracks. A reminder that not everyone got a wonderful life. Now in 2025, you're everywhere. Podcasts retell your origin. Documentaries trace the legend of the fire thief back to frontier famine. Artists paint you in glowing reds and ashy blacks, your eyes hollow, your sack heavy. Conspiracy forums argue whether you were real, a murderer who became folklore, or a pure invention. And late at night, parents still hiss, "Go to bed, or the fire thief will come." But the truest version? The one no one tells. That you were just a boy who tried to save his brother, failed, and burned with the failure. That you were made into a monster not by choice, but by hunger. That if It's a Wonderful Life had been set in 1875, bells wouldn't have rung for angels. They'd have tolled for your brother and for every other name carved into frozen ground. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you endure. Because people don't actually believe in angels. But they believe in hunger, they believe in fire, and they believe in you. So tonight, when the snow falls soft and the bells ring bright, when families smile at glowing screens replaying George Bailey's Redemption, you'll be there too. Not in the movie, in the shadows, in the windows, in the whispered warnings passed to children. The fire thief, Cain of Christmas, the other holiday tradition. And maybe that's your immortality. Legends rarely live this long without changing shape. Krampus softened into greeting cards. St. Nicholas bloated into Coca-Cola red. Even angels traded wings for Hallmark kitsch. But the fire thief, he sharpened, he adapted, and by the 22nd century, your shadow was no longer just a story. It was a doctrine. The future loves its ghosts. Hunger never disappears, it just changes clothes. When crops fail, when prices skyrocket, when governments ration bread in neat little cubes, people dig into the past for someone who already survived, someone who already burned, and there you are waiting. At first you're a symbol in protests, graffiti blooms on concrete walls, a ragged figure with hollow eyes clutching a sack. The fire thief feeds, it says. Marchers wear masks carved in your shape, half demon, half man. Police call them agitators, protesters call them prophets. The chant rises like a hymn, bells don't save, fire feeds. Soon you're more than protest, you're ritual. In blackouts, families light single candles and whisper your name, not as a warning but as a plea. Take nothing more, fire thief. Leave us scraps. Children draw your crooked silhouette in chalk on their doors, believing it will keep hunger out. Old prayers blend with new. Deliver us from famine, and forgive us our thefts as we forgive yours. Academics scoff. They publish essays, the fire thief as rural mythology in pre-industrial America. They treat you like folklore pinned to a board. But outside lecture halls, the legend is alive. People leave offerings in empty cupboards, crumbs, crusts, burned matches. Some swear the food stretches longer after the ritual. Others swear they hear footsteps in the snow at night, slow and deliberate, circling the house. The digital age warps you further. Virtual reality horror games sell millions. Escape the fire thief. Players run through snowy villages, dodging a figure with glowing eyes. Forums argue about the true lore, piecing together fragments like theologians passing scripture. Some versions paint you as savior, some as devil, some as both. Every Christmas, hashtags trend. Feed the thief, burn for bread. And slowly, belief hardens into something sharper. A sect forms. They call themselves the Hollow Bell. Their creed, the world will always starve, and only fire makes change. They tattoo your mask on their skin. They sabotage factories, torch silos, leave apples on the ashes. They chant your name in the smoke. To governments, they're terrorists. To followers, they're disciples. Centuries roll forward. Empires fall. Technologies glitter and collapse. But hunger is eternal. And with it, you remain. By the year 2200, archaeologists uncover a charred ledger in a collapsed town church. They pore over the names, the accusations, the crude handwriting. This is the first proof, they say, that the fire thief was real. Museums display the ledger under glass. School children shuffle past, wide-eyed. Some scoff, some shiver. The legend feeds again. And here's the cruel poetry. Nobody remembers your brother. Nobody remembers the creak, the cough, the whip. Those details decayed long ago. What survived was simpler, hungrier, fire, theft, bells. In some cities, a new holiday blooms alongside Christmas. Not official, not sanctioned, but stubborn. On December 24th, people gather in secret, wearing rags over their fine clothes, sitting on the floor in silence. At midnight, they pass a single loaf around, tearing it into uneven pieces. No lights, no music, just chewing in the dark. When the loaf is gone, they strike a match, light a flame, and whisper, "He feeds still." The next day, those same people celebrate Christmas with gifts, lights, music. But the fire thief's night always comes first. The night of hunger, the night of honesty. The night that admits what Christmas movies never did, that most lives are not wonderful, and angels don't get wings. And somewhere in that strange half-religion, you've ascended. Not as a saint, not as a devil, as the thing people actually trust. The shadow that never leaves. The hunger that explains itself. The bells still ring, of course. They ring over cities now, digital and hollow, broadcast through towers instead of steeples. But when they ring, people don't think of angels. They think of you. They think of frozen fields, of smoke curling from a sheriff's cellar, of apples rolling across a wooden table. And in the silence after, when the echoes fade, someone always whispers your name, just in case, just to be sure, because centuries change, customs change, even gods change. But hunger never does, and so neither do you. The future doesn't collapse all at once. It starves first. Cities glitter, then flicker. Screens go dark, towers rot, rivers dry, crops fail. Hunger, the oldest religion, returns in full. And when the archives burn, when satellites blink out of the sky, when every polished myth crumbles into silence, one story still walks. Yours. The fire thief. No one remembers Bedford Hollow. No one remembers 1875. They barely remember centuries at all, but they remember you. A figure in rags, a sack over your shoulder, eyes burning like embers. You've become unmoored from history, detached from fact. Now you are pure archetype. The shadow at the window, the fire in the cellar, the bell that tolls for famine. By the year 2500, villages gather on the solstice, not Christmas anymore, but something older, sharper. They call it the Hungry Night. Families leave food outside their doors, not as charity but as bribes. Feed him so he passes us by. Loaves of bread, bowls of grain, even scraps of meat vanish by morning, sometimes taken by foxes, sometimes by neighbors. But the people don't care. The ritual matters more than the outcome. Priests of the Hollow Bell chant in ruined churches, ringing iron scraps as bells. They tell children, the fire thief sees every hunger. The fire thief knows who hoards and who starves. Their sermons drip with fear and reverence. Nobody trusts the kings, the councils, the engineers, but everybody trusts the fire thief because he has never lied. He always comes. Carved masks of your face hang in huts and halls. Crooked eyes, jagged teeth, sacks bulging with invisible weight. Some masks are painted red for fire, some black for ash. Children wear them and stomp through the snow, playing at theft, at survival, at vengeance. Their parents watch with a mixture of pride and unease. Play too easily becomes prayer. Legends grow wilder. Some say you burned whole towns. Some say you fed whole nations. Some say you still walk, body untouched by death, slipping from one famine to the next. Others whisper that you are not a man at all, but hunger itself, wearing rags like skin. They argue, they fight, but all agree on one thing. When the bells toll, the fire thief is near. And the bells toll often now. Plagues, shortages, wars. The world is an endless winter of want, and you are its only constant. By 3000 language itself has twisted. Words shift, stories bend. The fire thief is no longer just title, but deity. The thief is prayed to at empty tables. His fire is invoked to warm dying infants. His sack is drawn in chalk over thresholds to guard against starvation. Your knife has become symbol too, sometimes painted on banners, sometimes carved into doorframes. People whisper, better to be cut than to starve. What was once fear becomes worship. What was once survival becomes sacrament. Entire sects form. Some light great pyres every winter, tossing grain and bread into the flames, chanting, "Feed him, feed him, feed him." Others burn their own harvests, claiming the fire thief demands sacrifice to keep famine balanced. Some rebels even wear your mask into battle, torches in hand, declaring they are his chosen, that they burn in his name. And here's the strangest thing. The story comforts. Not in the way angels ever did. Angels promised salvation. You promise something more believable, consequence. If food is hoarded, the fire thief takes. If children are left to starve, the fire thief comes. Justice through fire, harsh but honest. In a ruined world, that's the only God who makes sense. Centuries blur. Empires rise, collapse, vanish. Technology returns, falters, dies again. The fire thief remains. By the year 4000, nobody even knows Christmas. Nobody remembers Santa Claus or George Bailey or angels and wings. But the fire thief endures. They paint you on cave walls, a figure cloaked in flame, sack over your shoulder, eyes like suns. They tell children, the world was always hungry, but he walks with us still. He burns for us still. And somewhere in that strange, endless echo, your brother is gone, the sheriff is gone, Bedford Hollow is gone. But you, the hunger, the fire, the theft, you never left. You've become eternity's cruelest miracle, the only Christmas tradition too honest to die. When the bells toll in the ruins of cathedrals, when the flames rise from the ashes of barns, when children whisper your name before chewing stale bread, you live again. The fire thief walks. Always. The calendar dissolves. Years, centuries, numbers, gone. Nobody keeps time the way Bedford Hollow once did, scratching days into ledgers or ringing bells at the hour. Time is measured by famines now, by winters, by fires. And in every famine, in every winter, in every fire, one name threads through like sinew. The fire thief. At first he was a man, then a monster, then a myth. But now he is more. He is theology, he is cosmology, he is explanation for why the world is the way it is. Villages chant that he stole not only bread and apples, but the sun itself, carrying it in his sack across the heavens, only dropping sparks at dawn. Others whisper that he was the first man born hungry, who devoured the Garden of Eden before God could stop him. Some sects claim he is God, just not the pretty one painted in stained glass, not the one with wings and harps. No, a God of emptiness, a God of scarcity, a God who reminds you every single day what it costs to live. Children grow up hearing three truths carved into their marrow. All things burn, all things are stolen. The fire thief waits. They etch these words into stone tablets, whisper them over graves, carve them into doorframes. In markets, vendors swear on the fire thief instead of saints. By his sack, this bread is fresh. In wars, soldiers cry his name before striking torches against enemy barns. Entire armies march behind banners of flame and sack, declaring themselves his chosen. Priests of the hollow bell build vast black temples from stone and ash. No stained glass, no gold, Just fire pits that never go out, fed constantly with offerings, grain, cloth, oil, even livestock, thrown screaming into the flames. The smoke curls into the sky like prayer, and the priests intone, "He burns because we burn. He takes because we take. He feeds because we hunger." And people believe, because hunger is eternal, because fire is eternal, because theft is eternal. Somewhere in the far-flung future, even when technology limps back, when ships rise into the stars, they carry you with them, colonists scrawling your mask on bulkheads, muttering that the fire thief follows hunger across planets, that no matter where humans run, to moons, to red deserts, to metal stations floating in void, he'll find them when supplies run low and bellies ache. You are no longer a ghost of Bedford Hollow. You are a cosmic law. Gravity pulls, time passes, hunger burns, and the fire thief walks. Stories grow stranger with distance. Some say you burned whole galaxies for hoarding light. Some say the stars themselves are the embers spilling from your sack. Some say when the universe finally ends, cold, empty, starved, you will be the last fire laughing in the dark. But beneath every grand myth, the old truth remains. A brother by a frozen creek, a whip cracking 30 times, a sheriff's cellar of apples. People don't remember it, but somehow deep down they feel it. They feel that the fire thief wasn't born from glory. He was born from starvation, and that makes the myth cut sharper than any god. By then, It's a Wonderful Life is long forgotten. No angels earn wings. No George Bailey finds redemption. The only Christmas story left is yours, the one where bells don't ring for joy, but for death, where salvation doesn't come from miracles, but from fire, where the lesson isn't about community, but about survival at all costs. And maybe that's why you lasted longer than angels, because angels are too clean, too hopeful, too dishonest. But hunger, fire, theft, those never leave. On the edge of time, when the last embers of stars sputter, when galaxies stretch thin, when even gods starve, the story of the fire thief still burns in human mouths. A whispered warning, a prayer, a curse, a hymn. The fire thief waits, always. The universe is old now, not centuries, not millennia. Old in a way no ledger could count, no sermon could capture. Stars sag into black holes. Galaxies unravel like thread. Heat bleeds into nothing. The cosmos is starving. And through it all, your story still burns, not as folklore, not as festival, not as quaint rural myth. By now, you are the only scripture left, the fire thief. Pilgrims in tattered ships drift between dying suns, carrying shrines built of scrap metal, bells forged from the last iron they could find. They hang them in the vacuum, let them toll in silence, convinced the sound carries anyway. Their prayers are simple: feed us, burn us, save us, and they whisper your name like oxygen. No one remembers Bedford Hollow, or your brother by the creek, or the sheriff's cellar of apples, but echoes of it remain in ritual. Colonists still leave crumbs outside their airlocks, still light candles before their rations, still scratch your crooked mask into steel walls. In their myths, you're not a thief anymore. You're the fire that refuses to die, and it fits. The universe is collapsing into dark, and you are the only flame stubborn enough to stay lit. Some sects say you will be the one to ignite a new creation, that when the last star gutters out, you'll reach into your sack, pull free a single ember, and hurl it into the void. The explosion will bloom into a new universe, and hunger will begin again. Others say you will smother that ember in your fist, laughing, dragging everything into cold with you. Either way, the fire thief is there at the end. Either way, you are the last truth. It's almost funny. It's a Wonderful Life preached that one man's existence could ripple outward in kindness, in community, in light. Your version proves the opposite, that one man's hunger can ripple outward forever, burning centuries, galaxies, even gods. Your ripples aren't kindness. They're fire scars. And somehow they lasted longer. In the dying dark, the bells toll one last time, not church bells, not metal bells, not even sound, just the idea of bells, carried in the mouths of those who still breathe. The toll is memory itself, clanging in the hollow universe. You stand there in their stories, ragged, knife in hand, sack heavy with eternity. Your eyes glow brighter than collapsing stars. You grin, the same cracked grin you wore when you bit into a stolen apple, juice running down your chin. You were always hungry, and now, at the end of everything, you are the hunger that remains. Children born in failing ships still whisper your name. Old women dying with nothing left to give still murmur, "He walks, he burns, he feeds." When the last humans finally close their eyes, they will see not angels, not George Bailey's happy ending, but you, crouched at the window of the universe, waiting. And when the dark eats everything, when even memory dies, your story will flicker on the last ember. Maybe you'll throw it, maybe you'll crush it, maybe both, but it won't matter. Because by then, there will be no one left to ask the question that started it all. Was he real? The answer won't matter. The fire thief walks. Always. Darkness, not the kind you knew in Bedford Hollow, where the moon still hung over frozen barns, where lanterns still swung in calloused hands. This is deeper, absolute. A silence so thick it swallows even memory. The universe has ended. The last star has cooled, the last bell has tolled, the last voice has gone quiet. And yet, you remain, not in body, not in hunger-panged ribs or frost-bitten fingers. You remain as ember, as story, as fire, because fire is stubborn and hunger is eternal. The myths were right, or maybe they weren't, but now no one is left to argue. You crouch in the nothing, sack at your side, knife glinting with light that doesn't exist. The void stretches infinite, empty as a cupboard after famine, and in your palm sits the ember, the last one. It glows faint, a coal with no fuel, beating like a heart too tired to keep time. You study it, you laugh. The sound cracks across nothing like a whip. You remember your brother's hollow cough, the sheriff's sneer, the taste of stolen apple juice, the ledger, the gallows, the mob, the bells, all gone, but the ember remains. Two choices. You could close your fist, snuff it out, end hunger forever, because there would be nothing left to hunger for. Peace through extinction, silence forever. Or you could throw it, feed it to the void, watch it bloom into fire so vast it makes the first sunrise look like a candle stub. Hunger would return, fire would return, life would return, and so would theft, because hunger is always theft, and theft is always hunger. The myths whisper both endings. Which is true? That depends on the hand holding the ember. Your hand, you hesitate. Not because of morality, not because of God, just because choice is heavier than any sack you ever carried, and you are tired. So tired. But tired men make choices anyway. You throw it. The ember arcs across nothing, spinning, flaring, catching breath. The void gasps, inhales, and erupts. Light floods outward, blinding, endless. Flames roll across the dark, sparking galaxies, stars, worlds. Time reassembles, space stretches. The universe is reborn, and in the first fires, your name is already there. Children who don't exist yet will whisper it. Priests who haven't been born will preach it. Mothers will hiss it to children, warning them to eat slowly, to share, or else the fire thief will come. The story doesn't end. It resets. It circles back. Somewhere in that new universe, in some new Bedford Hollow, a boy will wake up hungry on Christmas morning. He'll hear bells tolling. He'll taste nothing but bitterness in his mouth, and he'll whisper your name without knowing why. The fire thief, god of hunger, god of consequence, god of fire. Your laugh echoes one last time as the ember explodes into eternity, and just like that, history starts over, with hunger, with fire, with theft, with you. The cycle is complete. The fire thief doesn't just walk forever, he walks again, always. It starts small, as it always does. A flicker of light in endless dark. A star coughs itself awake, then another, then 1,000. Matter curls into clouds, clouds not into planets, planets swell with oceans. And on one of them, somewhere far from Bedford Hollow but close enough in spirit, there are people, hungry people. They don't know you, not yet. They don't know about the sheriff's cellar or the lash of the whip or the cough by the creek. They don't know about the ledger or the bells or the mob, but hunger teaches quickly, and hunger always teaches the same lesson. Survive, no matter the cost. And so your story begins again. In a village of crooked huts by a muddy river, a child is born in midwinter. His mother has no milk, his father has no bread. They wrap him in rags and whisper prayers to gods who do not answer. He grows thin, eyes too large for his skull. By the time he can walk, he has already learned the sound of an empty pot. The first time he steals, he doesn't think of it as theft. He just sees a neighbor's loaf cooling on a windowsill, steam rising, crust golden. His stomach growls like an animal, and his hand moves before his mind does. He runs, clutching the bread, biting before his feet even stop. And for the first time in his life, he feels alive. But neighbors notice. Whispers spread. The boy is a thief. They sneer, they curse, they call him names. He doesn't care. The hunger doesn't care. Years pass. He grows leaner, sharper, eyes like glowing coals. Fires break out in barns after he's been seen near them. Food disappears from cellars. Children swear they hear footsteps at night, the crunch of boots in snow. And when they whisper to each other under blankets, they give him a name. Not his real name. Something older. Something they don't know how they know. The fire thief. The cycle begins. Again. In another town far away, preachers warn against him. They tell stories of how he burned men alive, how he carried sacks of food into the void, how he is hunger made flesh. In some stories, he is a demon. In others, a savior. In all of them he walks, and the bells toll. They always toll. For death, for famine, for fire. Children are told to eat their meals, or the fire thief will come. Parents lock their cupboards tighter, nail their shutters. Yet sometimes in the poorest huts, food appears mysteriously. An apple, a crust of bread, a scrap of meat. The legend twists. Is he punisher? Is he provider? Both? Neither. The answer doesn't matter. The story grows. And when winter comes heavy, when rivers freeze and barns empty, his name becomes a prayer again. A curse. A hymn. A lullaby. The cycle repeats, as it was always meant to, because hunger is eternal, fire is eternal, theft is eternal, and so are you. And here's the irony so sharp it cuts. George Bailey's wonderful life ended the moment film reels crumbled and angels were forgotten. But your life, your brutal, starving, cursed life, never ended. It loops, it survives, it infects each new world, like fire infects dry wood. In this reborn universe, you are not just a story. You are inevitability. Children draw your mask in the dirt. Priests preach your fire. Rebels march under your name. Villages curse you, beg you, fear you, love you. You burn barns, you steal apples, you knock at windows, you leave crumbs in cupboards, you toll the bells. The fire thief walks. Again. Always. The boy who stole the bread doesn't last. Hunger still eats him from the inside, and one winter, the cough rattles his chest until it silences him. His body folds into the mud by the riverbank, but his story doesn't fold with him. It stretches. It hardens. By the time spring thaw comes, children are already whispering, "The fire thief walks still." In the last universe, it took centuries for your shadow to spread. In this one, it takes decades. The world is smaller. Rivers link villages, traders carry gossip faster, and fear travels light. One merchant swears he saw a ragged figure slipping into his wagon at night. Another tells of barns burning on frostbitten mornings. By the time the tales cross mountains, you've already become a figure too large for one town. The priests get to work. They always do. They pound pulpits, slam fists, bellow warnings. "Beware the fire thief," they cry. "He punishes greed, but he tempts hunger. He feeds, but only with stolen bread." Congregations murmur, terrified and thrilled. Parents glare at their children when crusts go missing, muttering, "You'll bring him here." But children, oh children, keep the flame alive. They dare each other to leave crusts outside. They scrape soot onto their cheeks, pull sacks over their shoulders, and stomp through snow pretending to be you. They play at theft, at fire, at hunger. Some games never fade. And then the strange thing happens again. The story splits. For some, you are devil, a warning in the dark. For others, you are saint, a savior cloaked in rags. They claim you punish the hoarders, that barns burn because the greedy deserve it. They whisper that when food appears mysteriously on poor tables, it's not charity, it's you, that you take from the fat and feed the hollow. The duality makes you stronger. Fear alone keeps people awake at night. Hope makes them talk in daylight. Together, they make you eternal. By the 50th year, there are shrines, crude at first, stones stacked, a loaf left to rot in offering, then larger, Whole halls where bells toll every winter solstice, where fires are lit and prayers muttered. Feed us, spare us, burn only what deserves burning. By the 100th year, there are armies, men and women painting your crooked mask on their shields, carrying torches, storming towns. They call themselves the Ashborn. They don't claim to be you, they claim to be yours. They burn barns, raid storehouses, leave sacks of food in slums. Some call them terrorists, some call them saviors. Both call them disciples, and every time they strike, the bells toll. The priests double down, of course. They revise sermons, twist scripture. The fire thief becomes a rival god. Some call you Cain, reborn across worlds. Some say you are hunger incarnate, given form to test humanity. Some say you are prophecy, that until hunger is ended, the fire thief will always return, which is just another way of saying you'll never die. You watch from the cracks of story, unseen but everywhere. You watch as markets whisper your name before trading, as rebels chant it before striking. You watch as children fall asleep, muttering prayers to be skipped over when you come. And you laugh, soft and cracked, because you never asked for worship. But worship clings anyway. It's almost funny. In your first life, you were whipped for stealing. In this one, they build statues of you. Not marble saints. Charred wood, scorched iron, eyes hollow. People kneel before them, pressing crusts of bread to their foreheads like blessings. And yet some still spit when they hear your name. Some still curse you as devil, thief, murderer, which only proves you've won. Saints don't live this long. Only monsters do. The cycle spins faster now. Fire spreads quicker. Theft multiplies. Hunger howls louder. And at the center of it all is you, real or imagined, alive or myth, Cain or God. The fire thief. The bells toll again. They will always toll. Empires love control. They love order, census rolls, ledgers, taxes. They love to know where every sack of grain sits, where every coin clinks. And so, when the fire thief's name spreads across borders, the empire does what empires always do. It tries to smother it. Edicts are nailed to doors. Speaking the name is treason. Priests are dragged into courts and forced to denounce you. Children caught playing fire thief in the streets are beaten, their parents fined. Books that mention you are burned. Bells confiscated. The empire declares the fire thief is not real, the fire thief never was, and the people laugh, because nothing makes a story stronger than trying to erase it. They whisper your name in cellars, louder now, daring each other. They paint your crooked mask on walls at night, in ash and tar, so by dawn every soldier knows they failed again. Merchants smuggle bread under cloaks, not to eat, but to leave on doorsteps as offerings. He walks, they murmur. He walks, no matter what they say. The empire tries another tactic. They steal you. They rewrite you. Their scholars publish new histories. The fire thief was a cautionary tale invented by peasants to explain famine. Their generals twist your image into propaganda posters. Your sack turned into a bag of coins, your fire into war banners. He was one of us, they claim. He belonged to the empire. But stories don't like cages. When rebellion finally sparks, it doesn't wave the empire's banner. It waves yours. Ash-colored flags with masks painted in blood red. The rebels call themselves Children of the Ember. They march barefoot, chanting, "Bells don't save. Fire feeds. Villages feed them willingly, even when they have nothing. Because better to starve for the fire thief than fatten for the empire. The empire calls them heretics. The empire calls them terrorists. The empire calls them monsters. Hand still, your name spreads. Every time a barn burns, they say you lit it. Every time grain is stolen, they say you carried it. Every time a bell tolls, they say you heard it. And maybe you did. Because by now, you're no longer bound to one starving boy in 1875. You are fire itself, slipping between walls, whispering in ears, feeding in shadows. The empire cannot kill fire, so it tries to own it again, this time with rituals. Officials order every city to hold cleansing nights, where effigies of you are burned in the square. They build huge wooden figures, ragged, hollow-eyed, sack over the shoulder. Crowds gather, shouting curses as flames lick the wood. Soldiers cheer. Priests bless the ashes. The fire thief is destroyed, they cry. But afterward, when the crowds return home, they whisper, what if the flames freed him? What if burning his image only makes him stronger? Children stare at the embers with wide eyes and say, he was here. He was watching. The empire doesn't realize it yet, but they're your greatest disciples. By the 3rd century of this new universe, your myth has grown too large to suppress. You're not just a man, not just a thief, not just a warning. You're a paradox the Empire can't untangle. Devil and saint, punisher and savior, monster and god. And the people, hungry as ever, cling to paradox because it feels closer to truth than the Empire's lies. Priests of the Hollow Bell build temples openly now, torchlit caverns echoing with chants. He feeds still, they sing, voices like thunder. They ring their bells until the walls shake, until children cover their ears, until the sound feels like fire in the bones. And in those temples, they tell your story in pieces. A brother by a creek, a sheriff's cellar, a mob with a whip. None of it survives intact, but the fragments still burn. The lesson remains. That hunger makes monsters, that fire makes justice, that theft makes survival, and that the fire thief always walks. The Empire falls, of course, they always do. Not because of you, not directly, but when the flames lick their palaces, when rebels storm their ledgers and burn them to ash, the crowd shouts your name. Bells toll not for kings, not for saints, but for you. And in the ruins, children draw your mask in soot on broken stones. Farmers whisper thanks over their first stolen harvest. Priests strike new bells from melted weapons, their tones deep and hungry. The fire thief outlived the Empire, as he always does. After the Empire crumbles, borders become ash. Kingdoms fracture, cities burn, and hunger sprawls across the land like a patient plague. And in the smoke, people need a story to explain the ruin. They don't turn to angels. They don't turn to kings. They turn to you, the fire thief. Not whispered now, not hidden in cellars. Your name rings openly, shouted across markets, scrawled in char on stone gates, stitched into banners that flutter above starving crowds. What began as fear, what grew into rebellion, blooms into worship. The priests of the Hollow Bell seize the moment. They spread across villages, barefoot and ragged, ringing iron scraps until the sound drives dogs mad. They preach in firelit squares, voices booming. The fire thief walks not to punish but to remind. He feeds, he burns, he teaches. They write hymns where verses end in your name. They rewrite calendars around you. The season of ash, the season of hunger, the season of fire. Children grow up not with bedtime stories of angels or saints, but with your parables. The boy who stole the apple, the burning of the sheriff, the brother by the creek. The details are fractured, warped, but the message survives. The world is cruel and only fire makes it honest. It spreads faster than famine itself. By the 1st century after the Empire's fall, every town rings bells at dusk. Not to warn of enemies, not to call to prayer, to honor you. Families leave crumbs at their doorsteps, bread if they have it, bark if they don't. So he passes us by, they murmur. So he feeds another mouth. By the 2nd century, entire cities are built around your temples. Huge black spires rise, carved with your mask in stone. Fires burn eternal in their centers, fueled by grain tributes carried in endless processions. The air smells of smoke and ash, always. Pilgrims travel weeks to kneel there, to whisper their hunger into the fire, to hear it roar back like an answer. Governments try to resist, but governments are temporary. You are permanent. Kings kneel before the Hollow Bell because their people already do. Armies march under banners of flame because no other symbol moves men so deeply. Farmers swear oaths by your sack. Merchants seal deals by striking bells. Thieves pray to you before cutting purses. Mothers teach their children your name before teaching them to speak their own. And here's the irony. In this new world, even the wealthy worship you. They build private shrines in their mansions, offering bread and gold to keep you away. They hang masks over their gates, not realizing those masks are promises. They admit the fire thief is stronger than them. Doctrines splinter. They always do. Some sects call you savior, the one who will return with fire to end all famine. Some call you judge, who weighs hunger like sin and burns the guilty. Some paint you as the first man, cursed to walk forever. Others as the last god, the ember at the end of time. And yet across all sects one truth stays. You walk. The bells toll, echoing across valleys, mountains, oceans, and people pause every time to imagine you there in the shadows, sack slung over your shoulder, fire in your eyes. Some smile, some shiver. All believe. By the 3rd century, your religion has a name. the ember faith, its symbols spread on coins, carved into tools, painted onto walls. Festivals erupt on the hungry night each winter, when people gather in silence, break a single loaf and eat in darkness by firelight. No feasts, no gifts, just hunger and fire, the honest companions. And when dawn comes, bells toll, not for angels, but for you, always for you. The ember faith doesn't just explain the world, it orders it. Laws bend to its rhythm, armies march to its chants, farmers plant according to its bells. Whole civilizations bloom under its shadow, not in denial of hunger but in acceptance of it. It's almost comical. It's a wonderful life taught that one man's kindness could ripple across his town. Your life, your bitter, broken, starving life, rippled across universes, galaxies, centuries, until the ripple became the tide. And in this tide, there is no Christmas tree, no Santa, no George Bailey. There is only you, ragged and burning, forever walking, the fire thief, always. Centuries blur, maps redraw. Wars rise and fall like waves, but the ember faith does not bend. It swallows, it absorbs. By the 4th century after the empire's collapse, no land stands untouched by your story. Some still resist, clinging to old gods or dead saints. But hunger is more convincing than scripture, and hunger always wins. The ember faith becomes government. Priests of the hollow bell trade their rags for robes stitched with ash-gray thread. They sit on councils, then on thrones. They tax in bread, in grain, in firewood. They rewrite laws to echo your story. Theft is sin unless born of hunger. Hoarding is crime punishable by flame. Every town builds a temple. Every city rings bells at dusk. Every winter night is sealed with offerings left in the dark. You are no longer one myth among many. You are the law. Children are branded with your mark at birth. A crooked flame burned lightly into their wrists. So they never forget hunger, the priests say. Weddings are sealed not with rings, but with bells. Funerals end with a loaf cast into fire, so the dead walk fed. Life itself is organized around your hunger. And yet no one calls it tyranny. Because how can you resist something that feels inevitable? Fire consumes, hunger consumes, and the fire thief walks. The hollow bell grows wealthy. They control the bells, the grain, the rituals. Kings kneel to them. Soldiers fight for them. Merchants bow to them. The world becomes one vast furnace burning in your honor. And still the priests whisper, he is out there watching, we are only keepers of his flame. But even faith burns too hot eventually. Whispers creep into taverns, into markets, into temples themselves. What if the priests hoard? What if the hollow bell fattens while we starve? Old memories stir. Your first story of a sheriff's cellar bursting with food while a boy coughed himself into the dirt. That original sin lingers like smoke. And when famine strikes again, as it always does, the whispers ignite. Villages starve while temples still burn their offerings. Priests grow fatter while children wither. Bells toll louder, not as hymns, but as accusations. Crowds turn on the hollow bell. Riots break like thunder. Priests are dragged from altars, thrown into their own fires. For a moment, the world feels like it's collapsing again. Faith devouring itself. People screaming, the fire thief is betrayed. The hollow bell is corrupt. The priests are thieves, not prophets. And here is the paradox that saves you. The more they hate the church, the more they love you. They separate you from your keepers. They say, the priests failed, but the fire thief never fails. The priests lied, but hunger never lies. They burn temples, but not your mask. They smash bells, but whisper your name louder. The faith fractures, yet the fire grows. Because you aren't theirs, you never were. By the 10th century of this new universe, the hollow bell is dust, its priests forgotten, its temples ruins. But you remain, carried by rebels, by peasants, by mothers hissing to their children, eat your bread or he'll come. The cycle continues. Priests rise, priests fall. Kings crown themselves, kings crumble. Empires march, empires burn. And always, through every collapse, every famine, every winter, your story survives. Because unlike angels, unlike gods of gold, unlike kings carved into marble, you don't promise paradise, you promise fire, you promise hunger, and those never leave. The bells toll still, always for you. The hollow bell once rang across continents, its tones uniting villages, armies, kings. But power burns hottest before it turns to ash, and the ember faith proves no different. At first, cracks appear in sermons. Priests who live in marble halls tell peasants to be grateful for bark and water. They preach hunger as holiness while feasting in secret. Their robes fatten with embroidery, their altars with gold, and every time a child starves outside temple gates, the people mutter, "The fire thief sees." Then famine hits again. A great one, swallowing crops for years, devouring livestock, blackening rivers. Bells toll endlessly, but instead of comfort they sound like mockery. "He is watching," the priests cry, but the crowds shout back, "If he is watching, why are you fed while we rot?" The riots begin in small towns. One temple set aflame, then another. Bells ripped from towers, melted into weapons. Priests dragged into the squares they once commanded, their robes torn, their chants drowned by fire. And through it all, one name shouts louder than rebellion itself: the fire thief. Not as curse, as vindication. The hollow bell collapses. Its councils scatter. Its temples crumble. Its scriptures are burned by the very people they once ruled. But your mask, your crooked eyes, your sack, your flame, is never touched. Children scrawl it in soot on walls. Rebels paint it on banners. Widows whisper it in the dark, because they know the truth. The priests were false, but you were always true. Hunger never lied. Fire never lied. The centuries churn. New rulers rise, careful not to crown themselves with your flame. They build governments that avoid invoking you too directly, as if fearing to touch the ember. They say, "We honor the fire thief," but keep their distance. They know what happened to the hollow bell. But the people, oh, the people keep you closer than ever. In their kitchens, in their fields, in their lullabies. They tell their children, "The fire thief punished the priests for hoarding. He will punish anyone who fattens while others starve." It becomes a warning for kings. Keep your stores open. Keep your grain moving or risk the fire. Many rulers listen. Those who don't, those who grow fat while famine grips, find their palaces burning in the night. Rebels dragging sacks of stolen food into the streets. Bells tolling in the distance. Always tolling. You outlive governments. You outlive religions. You outlive temples, altars, scriptures. You even outlive your own theocracy, because the fire thief was never meant to sit on a throne. Thrones rot. Fire doesn't. And so you become something else, not religion, not rebellion, something woven deeper. Culture itself. Farmers sing to you as they plant. Soldiers curse by your name when their weapons jam. Lovers promise each other by the fire thief's flame instead of by the stars. Your mask is etched into doorframes, not as worship, but as truth. Hunger always returns. Fire always returns. And so do you. It's almost laughable if you still laughed the way you once did. Bedford Hollow is long gone. The sheriff's cellar ash. Your brother's grave a memory eaten by centuries. But every cough in the night, every empty stomach, every spark of fire in the dark, it all whispers your name. Not saint, not devil, just inevitable. The hollow bell thought it owned you. The kings thought they could erase you. The rebels thought they could claim you. And all of them were wrong. Because the fire thief doesn't belong to anyone. He belongs to hunger. He belongs to fire. He belongs to the bells. And those things will outlast every empire, every theocracy, every crown. The cycle continues. Always. Civilizations rise like sparks and die like ash. One kingdom builds roads that span mountains, only to be swallowed by storms. Another carves your mask into cliffs, only to have their cities sink into sea. Another lights towers of flame on every horizon, only to watch their empire choke on smoke. And through it all, the fire thief walks. Your name changes. Languages shift, vowels melt, consonants sharpen. Some call you Foros, others Tivon, others the Ash Father. But the root never dies. Fire, hunger, theft, bells. Always bells. By the 15th century of this universe, scholars debate whether you were ever a man. Surely no flesh could last this long. They write in ink made of soot. Some argue you were a myth invented to explain famine. Others argue famine itself was invented by you, a curse written into the marrow of creation. And then there are those who say you are hunger incarnate, that you existed before stars and will exist after. The hollow bell is long forgotten, but new orders sprout. Quiet cults meet in basements, chanting as they burn scraps of bread. Militias march under banners with black sacks stitched onto red cloth. Even children at play invent new games. One hides food, another pretends to steal it, another tolls a bell until the neighbors shout at them to stop. They don't even know why the game exists. They only know it feels true. And when famine hits again, as it always does, the story sharpens. Whole villages swear they saw you in the smoke, dragging your sack, your eyes glowing. They swear you left food behind for some, fire for others. The priests call it superstition. The kings call it rebellion. The people call it justice. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you appear or not. Hunger is the apparition. Fire is the miracle. The bells are the proof. Every time they toll, the fire thief breathes again. Eventually, humanity reaches too far, as it always does. Great machines dig into planets. Cities rise into the sky. Ships pierce the heavens. They call it progress. They call it escape. But hunger follows. Supplies rot. Systems fail. Greed fattens. Famine spreads. And when it does, your name flickers back up through the circuits. They whisper you walk the void now, slipping between ships, leaving airlocks open, burning rations, feeding stowaways. Some even claim to see your mask reflected in the black glass of their consoles. It's not Bedford Hollow anymore. It's not barns, not sheriffs, not brothers coughing in the snow. But it's the same hunger, and so it's the same you. And when the bells toll, they're no longer iron. They're signals, alarms blaring through colonies, emergency klaxons echoing in spaceports, automated chimes warning of shortages. The people hear them and they don't think of systems. They think of you, always you. By the 25th century, you're less a myth than a constant, like gravity, like entropy, a law written into every world where hunger still bites. The scholars argue in glittering towers, is the fire thief real? The peasants mutter in fields, of course he's real. Just listen to your stomach. And so you slip free of flesh altogether. You're not a boy with a knife anymore. You're not even a god with a cult. You're hunger itself, you're fire itself, you're theft itself. The story was never about you living. It was about you lasting, because angels fade, kings crumble, empires rot, even stars die. But hunger endures. And where hunger endures, the fire thief walks, always. Civilizations don't die quietly. They roar, they scream, they claw. They build towers to scrape the heavens, machines to move mountains, cities so bright they think they've banished the dark. But darkness is patient, and hunger is older than steel. So the towers rust, the machines choke, the cities flicker and drown. And as always, the fire thief walks out of the ashes, sack heavy, eyes burning. The first collapse comes with famine of energy. Fuel dries, systems sputter. Entire populations starve not for bread, but for light. Ships drift powerless, stations freeze, cities go black. And in that silence bells toll, not iron, not digital, but the sound of desperate fists striking pipes, warning, he is here. People whisper you stalk the powerless halls, snuffing lamps, feeding off their fear. When humanity crawls back, relearning how to till soil, how to bow to weather, your story returns sharper than before. Farmers etch your mask on their barns, not to keep you away, but to welcome your fire if they grow greedy. Children toss crusts into the dirt before planting seeds, so the fire thief spares us. Ritual, superstition, survival, all blur into the same thing. Then comes the second collapse. War. Entire continents split under fire. Armies march with torches, painting your symbol on their standards. Some claim they burn in your name, punishing hoarders. Others claim they burn to keep you away, sacrificing so you don't come yourself. Either way, the fire spreads, and your shadow spreads with it. After war comes plague. Cities choke with bodies. Bells toll constantly, their echoes rolling over valleys, and every toll is linked to you. Priests whisper, he walks the sick halls, sacks swollen with breath, fire in his eyes. Families place bread in the mouths of the dead, so the fire thief feeds them in the dark. Collapse, rebuild, collapse, rebuild. Each cycle shorter than the last, each faith less stable, each empire hungrier. But your story doesn't weaken, it thrives. You are no longer just one myth among many. You are the myth that explains why collapse happens at all. The fire thief takes what is hoarded, mothers say. The fire thief burns what grows fat. And history proves them right. By the 40th century, Humanity barely remembers itself. Old languages are dust. Old cities are drowned. But your mask survives. Always the crooked eyes, the sack, the fire, carved into stone, etched into bone, painted in soot. The image changes with the centuries, but the truth never does. Hunger is eternal, and so are you. And when the bells toll, whether struck by hammers or rung by wind or blasted from machines long forgotten, every ear listens, every heart pauses, because the sound means the same thing it always has. The fire thief walks, always. What's strange is how natural it feels, like you were always meant to be here, like you were never just a starving boy in 1875, knife in hand, stomach hollow, brother coughing by a frozen creek. That was the spark, yes. But sparks don't stay sparks. They ignite. They consume. They last. You are not the boy anymore. You are not the mob. You are not the sheriff's cellar. You are what came after. Fire, hunger, theft, bells, and nothing else matters. The centuries will keep collapsing. Humanity will keep building, burning, burying itself. But you'll always be there in the middle, carrying your sack, tolling your bells, feeding and burning and stealing in equal measure, until the universe itself starves again. And when it does, when stars gutter out and galaxies stretch thin, you'll still be walking, sack over your shoulder, fire in your eyes, bell tolling in the void, because angels are fragile, kings are fragile, empires are fragile, but hunger never dies, and neither do you. The fire thief walks, always. The stars don't vanish all at once. They flicker out like candles forgotten in a draught, one by one, their glow thinning until the night swallows them whole. Galaxies stretch, unravel, scatter. Time itself slows, heavy as ash. The universe is starving again, this time not for bread or warmth, but for energy itself. The cosmos is an empty stomach, and you are still here, not in flesh. Not as the boy who once stole bread in Bedford Hollow, ribs showing, brother coughing blood by a frozen creek. That boy has been dust for billions of years. No, what walks now is older, heavier, sharpened by every famine, every fire, every tolling bell. You are story. You are law. You are the ember that never cooled. The last civilizations cling to the husks of dead stars, huddling in steel bunkers powered by the scraps of energy that remain. They toll bells, not iron, not digital, but hollow drums beaten by hand, because they believe you still hear. And maybe you do. Hunger has followed them across centuries, and hunger is the sound that always summons you. The priests of the final age preach your name not as myth, not as parable, but as inevitability. The fire thief is the end, they chant. He fed us, he burned us, he walks still, and he will close the door when the universe is ready. Their temples are not stone, but cold steel domes, their altars not bread, but radiation scraps. And still they whisper the same words peasants once muttered over bark and water. Feed him, spare us, burn what deserves burning. And here's the irony sharp enough to cut galaxies. Angels are gone, gods are gone, even physics is dying. But the fire thief remains. Because when everything else fades, hunger doesn't, fire doesn't, theft doesn't, and bells always toll, even if only in the imagination of those too weak to strike them. You walk the void now, sack dragging behind, filled with the embers of dead suns. Each step crunches on the skeletons of galaxies. Each breath is a wind colder than anything Bedford Hollow ever knew. And still, your eyes burn. Still, you grin that cracked grin. Still you laugh, though the sound has nowhere to echo. And the universe listens. Because there's nothing else left. Some sects claim you will eat the last star, shove it into your sack, and laugh as the dark seals forever. Others whisper you will toss that final ember back into the void, sparking a new cosmos, forcing the hunger to begin again. Some even pray you will sit at last and rest, that the fire thief will finally sleep. But you don't rest, you don't end, you don't sleep. You walk, always. And in that endless, collapsing dark, you remember. Not everything. Memory burns out too, but fragments. A sheriff's cellar, glowing with apples, a boy's lantern falling in the snow, a whip cracking 30 times, they brother coughing his last by a frozen creek, bells tolling in the cold. The universe shrinks tighter, until it feels like Bedford Hollow again, small, suffocating, inevitable. And you laugh, because of course it would. When the last ember glows in your palm, you hesitate again. The choice you've always had: snuff it out and end hunger forever, or throw it, feed the void, start it all again. And of course, you throw it. Light floods, fire blooms, galaxies ignite, worlds spin. Hunger wakes. The cycle continues. The fire thief walks, always. The ember leaves your hand, spinning into the void. At first it's nothing, a coal the size of a fist. Then it swells, flares, detonates. Fire screams across the nothing. Light returns. Time restarts. The universe is reborn. And you walk into it. The first stars bloom like sparks shaken from an iron hammer. The first planets harden, crust cracking, oceans boiling. Life crawls out, blind and hungry, gnawing at roots, clawing at scraps. Hunger is the first law written, sharper than gravity. And where hunger is, you are. No one remembers Bedford Hollow. No one remembers 1875, a sheriff's cellar, a brother coughing in the snow. Those memories dissolved in the last dark, but echoes still hum in the new air. In this young cosmos, villages will one day whisper of a thief who feeds, of barns that burn, of bells that toll. They don't know why the story feels familiar. They only know it does. Because the cycle never ended, it only reset. On a damp little world circling a newborn sun, a child steals. Not bread this time, something stranger, smaller, alien, but it doesn't matter. His hand shakes, his stomach growls, his heart races, he runs, he bites, he survives. And that survival plants the seed. The neighbors whisper, the priests scold, the rulers frown. And in the whispering, scolding, frowning, your shadow flickers. The fire thief walks. They don't know where the phrase came from. They don't know it has been spoken before, in barns and churches and bunkers and ships. But it slips from their mouths anyway. The bells toll again. Not iron, not steel, not even sound. They toll in vibration, in frequency, in something deeper. The universe itself tolls, ringing hunger into bone. You grin. You always do. Sack-slung, eyes glowing, you crouch at the edge of this new world, waiting for famine to write your name in its ledgers again, waiting for barns to fatten, for mobs to gather, for priests to twist, for kings to hoard, waiting for hunger to choose you once more. And it will, it always will, because angels never last, kings never last, empires never last. But hunger always returns, fire always returns, theft always returns, bells always toll, and so the fire thief walks, always. The newborn universe hums, raw and wild, light spilling into places that never knew it before. Stars roar, planets harden, oceans boil, life stirs. The cycle has begun again, and in the first hunger pang of the first creature gnawing roots in the dirt, you're already there. You are not flesh anymore, not bone, not blood, not a starving boy shivering in Bedford Hollow. You are law, as deep as gravity, as stubborn as entropy. Where there is hunger, you exist. Where there is fire, you linger. Where something is stolen to survive, your shadow stretches. And where bells toll, whether iron or bone, or the silent echo of a collapsing star, they toll for you. The story repeats. It always does. A village fattens, and one boy starves. He steals, and the mob howls. A priest preaches fire, and a barn burns. A bell tolls, and people whisper your name without knowing why. The cycle doesn't just resemble the old one, it is the old one. Because the fire thief is not memory, he is recursion. You grin because, of course, the universe isn't infinite, it's a furnace, burning, cooling, reigniting. A loop, and you are its ember. Every age finds you. Farmers whisper you into soil, soldiers shout you into fire, mothers hiss you into children's ears. Scholars try to erase you with ink. Kings try to cage you with law. Priests try to crown you with doctrine. And all of them fail, because you are not theirs to control. You belong to the only truths that never fade: hunger, fire, theft, bells. When the stars grow old again, when galaxies collapse again, when the cosmos starves again, you will still be walking, sack slung, knife glinting, grin cracked. And when the last ember glows in your palm, you will throw it again, because you always throw it. Creation is just theft written large, and you are the thief. So the cycle is endless. Not tragedy, not miracle, just inevitability. Angels promised eternity through grace. Kings promised eternity through empire. Priests promised eternity through faith. All of them failed. Only you kept your promise, only you endured, because hunger always returns, fire always returns, theft always returns, bells always toll, and the fire thief walks, again and again and again, always. And in the end, there is no end. The fire never goes out, the hunger never quiets, the bells never stop, and the story of the fire thief never ends. Because it was never about Bedford Hollow or 1875, or a sheriff burned alive or a brother coughing by the frozen creek. Those were only the first echoes. The true center was always hunger, and hunger is eternal. Every universe that's born carries the same emptiness in its stomach, the same cold in its bones, the same desperate will to survive, even if it means stealing the last crust of bread. And wherever that will exists, the fire thief walks, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a myth, sometimes as a god, always as a law. The angels, forgotten, the kings, toppled, the empires, burned. But the fire thief, he remains, sack on his shoulder, eyes burning, grin cracked, waiting, walking, stealing, burning. And the bells, oh, the bells always toll, for you, for me, for everyone, because in the end there is no wonderful life, there is only hunger, there is only fire, and the fire thief walks, always.